Chapter 2972. Yao Xiangjuan's decision, Jiang Qixing. The gap between us is too great. Do you still want to continue fighting? Yihanfei casually shattered Jiang Qixing's sword qi and leisurely strode over to Jiang Qixing. His right palm blasted out like lightning and landed heavily on Jiang Qixing's chest. Boom! Jiang Qixing violently spat out a mouthful of blood and flew back. His face suddenly became incomparably pale as he crashed heavily to the ground. Yihanfei slowly landed in front of Jiang Qixing with his hand behind his back and stomped Jiang Qixing back down to the ground. The moment Jiang Qixing was captured alive, the battle on the other side had also ended. In Jiang Qixing's team, only Jiang Qixing was a third-step Dao Vindication powerhouse. The rest were second-step Dao Vindication masters like the Profound Theory Lord and the Eternal Overlord. Although Chao Conqing's cultivation was forcefully piled up with medicine, he had at least stepped into the threshold of the third-step Dao Vindication. Although he wasn't as strong as ordinary early-stage Genesis Lords, he was more than enough to deal with second-step Dao Vindication cultivators. Jiang Qixing's team members were basically suppressed, while Chao Conqing shuttled through the team like a killing machine. Every time he shuttled through the team, he took a life. At the same time, he didn't forget to take the spirit rings of the cultivators who were killed. Jiang Qixing raised his head with difficulty and saw his fellow disciples being killed out of the corner of his eye. He roared, his anger overtaking his reason. Boom! Jiang Qixing's body suddenly exploded with terrifying energy and rushed away from Yihanfei's right foot. Yihanfei clearly didn't expect this to happen. His right foot hurt, and he couldn't help but retreat. Jiang Qixing's body erupted with a terrifying light like the scorching sun. He instantly disappeared and swept in front of Chao Conqing. At this moment, Chao Conqing had just killed the nearest disciple of the sun-chasing temple. Just as he was about to move on to the next disciple, he felt a gust of wind whistling in front of him. Then, he saw Jiang Qixing rushing over like a blazing sun. A scorching heat wave swept over, bringing endless fear of death to Chao Conqing. He roared and kept retreating. However, Jiang Qixing was so fast that he caught up with Chao Conqing in the blink of an eye. Jiang Qixing clenched his hands in the air, and two golden swords that blazed brighter than the sun appeared in his palms. Then, he slashed at Chao Conqing's hands. Chao Conqing panicked and hurriedly waved all the defensive items on his body. Unfortunately, his defense was no different from tofu. As soon as he took it out, it was smashed into pieces by Jiang Qixing's two-handed golden sword. No, spare my life. After shattering all of Chao Conqing's defenses, Jiang Qixing suddenly stood up with the golden sword in his right hand and slashed down from above Chao Conqing's forehead. Obviously, Jiang Qixing had no intention of convincing Chao Conqing to beg for mercy. Puchi! Chao Conqing let out a blood-curdling scream as his entire body was blasted into two halves. Even his divine soul was scattered, and he had completely perished. Yihanfei's expression turned ugly when he saw Jiang Qixing easily kill Chao Conqing. He took a step forward and rushed toward Jiang Qixing. I really didn't expect that you would dare to burn your blood essence in a place like this. You're simply courting death. I'm afraid you don't have much strength left after killing Chao Conqing. I originally wanted to spare your life, but unfortunately, you don't know how to appreciate kindness. Go to hell. Yihanfei's eyes were cold as he threw the folding fan in his hand into the air. Suddenly, the folding fan turned into countless fan shadows that heavily enveloped Jiang Qixing. Jiang Qixing's face was very pale at the moment, and the golden swords in his hands were somewhat dim. He had indeed burned his blood essence just now to obtain more power. Unfortunately, there was no heavenly law power in this world, so the time he could burn his blood essence was too short. He could clearly feel that his whole body was filled with a sense of powerlessness at this moment. Bang! 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 Jiang Qixing barely pulled himself together and waved his hands. Golden light blazed all over his body as he resisted Yihanfei's fan shadow attacks. However, the surrounding fan shadows seemed to be endless and constantly bombarded Jiang Qixing, causing him to be exhausted. Puchi! Jiang Qixing's movements began to slow down. Suddenly, several fan shadows broke through his defense, and left a huge wound on his shoulder blade. Blood flowed down like a waterfall. Next, more and more injuries appeared on Jiang Qixing's body, and his movements became slower and slower. Yihanfei floated not far away, silently watching Jiang Qixing fight, like a cornered beast with a cruel smile on his face. Senior brother Yi, we've killed all the people in Chasing Sun Temple. What about junior sister Yao? A disciple of Yin and Yang divine sect came to Yihanfei and asked respectfully. Yihanfei crossed his arms and cast a sidelong glance at Yao Xiangjuan, who was in a rather sorry state, not far away. He said indifferently, Junior sister Yao, I'll give you a chance. Go over and kill Jiang Qixing for me, and our team will accept you again. At this point, Yihanfei pinched the void with his right hand. Suddenly, the fan shadows around Jiang Qixing became much more violent and appeared around Jiang Qixing's limbs. Suddenly, a terrifying blood mist burst out of Jiang Qixing's limbs. Jiang Qixing groaned and knelt on the ground with his hands supporting his body. His whole body twitched. I've already cut off his tendons in his hands and feet. Now go over and kill him with your own hands. The corners of Yihanfei's mouth were filled with a cold smile as he stared straight at Yao Xiangjuan. At this moment, Yao Xiangjuan had been released and collapsed on the ground. There was a trace of helplessness in her beautiful eyes, but it was soon replaced by determination. Junior sister Yao, didn't you hear what I said? If you don't do as I say, don't blame me for not being polite to you. Although you're my junior sister, you've disobeyed my orders many times. I don't mind staining my hands with the blood of fellow disciples. Yihanfei's voice was very cold. Yao Xiangjuan's delicate body trembled, and she looked at Yihanfei in disbelief. Senior brother Yi, you want to kill me? Haha, don't be so surprised. As long as you listen to me, I won't do anything to you, Yihanfei said indifferently. The other cultivators of the Yin and Yang divine sect lowered their heads and did not say a word. They more or less knew Yihanfei's character, so they had never disobeyed Yihanfei in the sect or in the team because they knew that it was not wise. Junior sister Yao, you'd better listen to senior brother Yi. After all, we're fellow disciples. You'll really anger senior brother Yi if you're so rebellious. Someone in the team advised. Yihanfei stood there silently and didn't say anything. He only looked at Yao Xiangjuan calmly. Yao Xiangjuan smiled sadly and said, Senior brother Yi, although I'm a disciple of the Yin and Yang divine sect and your junior sister, I'm still me. I don't need anyone to tell me what to do and what to do. Chapter 2973. Yihanfei was furious. Good, you're good. It seems like you still haven't realized it. I don't need a junior sister like you. Yihanfei couldn't help but shake his head with disappointment in his eyes. Shortly after, he slowly walked towards Yao Xiangjuan. His powerful aura suppressed Yao Xiangjuan, making it difficult for her to move. Yao Xiangjuan's delicate body trembled, but she didn't shrink back. Instead, she stubbornly looked at Yihanfei, who was slowly walking over. Yihanfei walked in front of Yao Xiangjuan and looked at the stubborn beauty before him. He lifted Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful chin with his right hand and gently stroked it. Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes were filled with disgust. She wanted to move away, but unfortunately, she was completely suppressed by Yihanfei's aura and couldn't move at all. Junior sister Yao, you're so beautiful. I didn't want to destroy you. Unfortunately, you're the one who challenged my bottom line time and time again. Now that you've angered me, there's really no other way. Don't blame me. Yihanfei joked. Bah! Yao Xiangjuan spat and unleashed the remaining energy in her body. She turned her head away and didn't want to look at Yihanfei's face. Yihanfei's eyes were filled with anger. He gave Yao Xiangjuan a slap and knocked her to the ground. He said indifferently, I said that you'll regret following Long Wen into the door of darkness. Now that Long Wen isn't by your side, I'm afraid he's either dead or fled in fear. What a coward. If time could be reversed, I wonder if you would still follow that coward? Yihanfei sneered. Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes were calm as she said, To be honest, Yihanfei, you can't even compare to a single hair on Senior Brother Long. In my opinion, you might not even be stronger than Senior Brother Long. Speaking up to here, Yao Xiangjuan sighed inwardly. She recalled how Long One had charged into the black ants to save them and risked his life. Later on, he even let them leave first while he faced the black ants alone. As for Yihan, other than bullying fellow disciples and the weak, he really didn't have any other merits. He was far from being comparable to Long One. I wonder how senior brother Long is doing now. I hope he's fine. Thinking of Long One, Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes became absent-minded. Originally, she thought that she would only fall in love with Zhuowen for the rest of her life and would not have any thoughts about other men. However, she also knew that Zhuowen already had someone he loved, and her love would only end in failure. But now, she discovered that she had an even stronger desire for Long One. Could it be that I'm starting to like the dragon text? Yihan noticed that when Yao Xiangjuan mentioned the dragon runes, her beautiful eyes revealed a dazed look. He knew that Yao Xiangjuan was thinking about the dragon runes. A flame of jealousy burned in his heart. He was the #1 genius of the Yin and Yang divine sect and ranked 3rd on the Starry Sky contribution list. How could he not compare to Zhuowen? Why was Yao Xiangjuan so obsessed with Long One? Then go to hell. Yihan was enraged. He raised the fan in his hand and swung it at Yao Xiangjuan's head. He wanted to kill her completely. However, his attack was quickly blocked by a terrifying gust of wind. Then, a huge force spread out, causing Yihan to groan and retreat repeatedly. The moment Yihan retreated, a tall and straight figure leaped into the field. The figure's right hand formed a fist and fiercely punched at Yihan. Yihan came back to his senses. Similarly, he was not afraid. He formed a seal with his right hand and pointed a finger. A spiral force exploded. Boom! Unfortunately, Yihan finger was directly destroyed. Yihan was forced to retreat again. It was not until he retreated several hundred steps that he barely managed to stop himself. He raised his head and looked at the figure's true face. It was a young man with 2 scars on his face. His eyes were like lightning as he coldly stared at Yihan. Long One, Yao Xiangjuan looked at the tall and straight figure in front of her and suddenly felt a part of her heart soften. Tears flowed down her cheeks involuntarily. Jiang Qixing's tendons in his hands and feet had been cut. The only thing he could move at this moment was his head. He raised his head with difficulty and looked at Zhuowen with a smile. "Brother Long, you're finally here." Zhuowen slowly walked towards Jiang Qixing. Several disciples of the Yin and Yang divine sect surrounding Jiang Qixing were trembling in fear. They watched Zhuowen walk over, but did not dare to make a move. They had seen with their own eyes how terrifying Long Wen's strength was. Even elder MDA of the Mermaid clan had been beaten up by him. If they went up, they would be looking for trouble. Zhuowen did not pay attention to the cultivators of the Yin and Yang divine sect. Instead, he walked to Jiang Qixing's side and checked his condition. His expression was not very good. Yao Xiangjuan was no longer suppressed by Yihan aura and naturally regained her mobility. She followed Zhuowen to Jiang Qixing's side. "Junior sister Yao, feed this divine pill to brother Jiang. Take good care of him." Zhuowen handed a golden divine pill to Yao Xiangjuan. Yao Xiangjuan's expression changed when she saw it. She couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "This is the primordial mind protection divine pill?" Yihan, who was originally angry, was stunned when he heard that it was the primordial mind protection divine pill. He knew about the primordial mind protection divine pill. It was a top healing divine pill. It was a Genesis divine pill and was very precious. Even Yihan did not have many of such divine pills. He would only use them when he was in danger. However, Long One had casually taken out and given it to Jiang Qixing. This was too extravagant. Zhuowen did not care. He was an immortal master of the pill array Immortal Alliance. When he had become an immortal master, Ji Wuming had given him many Genesis divine pills. This primordial mind protection divine pill was not worth mentioning to him. "Long One, do you have many of these primordial mind protection divine pills on you?" Yihan licked his lips and suddenly asked. Zhuowen stood up and looked at Yihan with a cold gaze. He said indifferently, "I do have many of them." "Why? Do you want them?" Yihan smiled proudly and said indifferently, "Since you have such good things, then hand over all the primordial mind protection divine pills on you to me. I will not do anything to you and let you leave on your own. Zhuan had a strange look in his eyes. Was there something wrong with Yi Hanfei's brain? Even at this point, he was still acting tough. Could it be that this guy was so confident that he, Zhuan, was inferior to him? Why should I hand over all the primordial mind protection divine pills to you? Tell me, who do you think you are? Zhuan stood in place and asked. Yi Hanfei was taken aback. Soon after, his eyes narrowed. He did not conceal the killing intent in his eyes as he sneered. What an arrogant fellow. Do you think that after defeating junior brother Chao, Kongsheng, and MDA, who suppressed his cultivation, you're invincible and don't even have me in your eyes? I'm sorry. You're wrong. I've never taken you seriously. You're overestimating yourself. Zhuan shook his head. You are courting death. Chapter 2974. Lei Qianzhu Rumble. Yi Hanfei was very powerful. Just this leap alone caused the air to explode, displaying the strength of a late-stage god of creation. Zhuan narrowed his eyes, feeling a little depressed. The aura that Yi Hanfei displayed was not the slightest bit inferior to Sauron, who had been killed by him. If they really fought, Yi Hanfei might not necessarily be weaker than Sauron. Bang! While Zhuan was pondering, Yi Hanfei had already arrived in front of Zhuan. His right hand pointed at Zhuan, and countless streams of energy that were like the sharpest blades in the world swept towards Zhuan's meridians and vital points. Zhuan calmly clasped his palms together. His body emitted a sparkling and translucent light. The moment the terrifying energy swept past him, it was offset by the sparkling and translucent light emitted by his body. Yi Hanfei frowned slightly, feeling a little surprised. He had not expected Long Wen's body to be so strong, even though his cultivation was not high. He had actually taken his attack head-on without suffering any damage. However, Yi Hanfei wasn't discouraged because of this. That attack from before was merely a prelude, and it wasn't even a tenth of his strength. Even though he was surprised that Zhuan was able to forcefully resist such an attack with his body, he didn't feel it was too unbelievable. Yi Hanfei stomped his feet repeatedly in midair. Every time he stomped, azure blue lightning would burst forth. It was as though Yi Hanfei had become one with the lightning. Azure blue lightning silhouettes appeared in midair. Bang! Bang! Every time he flashed, the lightning that burst forth was extremely sharp and powerful. Yao Xiangjuan and the others who were watching from the sidelines all revealed looks of fear. They could all feel the terrifying destructive power of the lightning. If they were to face this kind of lightning head-on, they would probably be severely injured at the very least. However, what shocked them even more was that Long Wen, who was being bombarded by such terrifying lightning, was actually able to take it head-on with his body. He chased after Yi Hanfei amidst the endless lightning. Rumble. Another bolt of lightning struck Zhuan's shoulder blade, slowing down Zhuan's movements. Meanwhile, Yi Hanfei disappeared from the spot and reappeared elsewhere. Yi Hanfei's expression was not very good. This movement technique was personally taught to him by their sect master, and Shao Jin. Not only was it extremely fast in escaping, but it could also be used to attack. Every bolt of lightning released was extremely powerful. Moreover, this kind of lightning was not only targeted at the physical body, it also had the destructive power to penetrate into the depths of one's soul. However, Long Wen was as Hanfei, Yi Hanfei's movements as he of the lightning. Even if this person's physical body was extraordinarily strong, this lightning was also targeting the spirit. Could it be that this person's spirit was not affected at all? Indeed, it was as Yi Hanfei had imagined. Zhuan's soul was not greatly affected. His soul was far stronger than the average cultivators. Even the souls of many Genesis lords were inferior to Zhuan's. In addition, Zhuan had the Panga Banner, a heaven-defying treasure, in his spirit. The moment the thunderbolt drilled into his spirit, it was intercepted and extinguished by the Panga Banner. On the other hand, Zhuan had cultivated the sacred body of Pangu. Although he was only at the peak of the 5 stars realm, his self-healing ability was terrifying. Every time the lightning struck his body, Zhuan's body would quickly heal itself. Therefore, it seemed that Zhuan's physical body was not affected at all. However, What gave Zhuan a headache was the mystery of Yihanfei's movement technique. Yihanfei's speed was so fast that it would be difficult for Zhuan to catch him in a short period of time. Thunderous annihilation trace. Yihanfei roared like a wild beast. Suddenly, his speed increased several times. Only an afterimage was left in the air. It was impossible to see his real body. The surrounding thunderbolts became several times denser. They fell endlessly and gathered on Zhuan's body. Mysterious light of creation. Zhuan's eyes were solemn. He formed a seal with both hands. He felt a trace of pressure and used the mysterious light of creation. A hazy white light enveloped his body like the most loyal protective halo. Sizzle. Terrifying thunderbolts fell densely and landed on the surface of the mysterious light of creation. Endless sparks and thunderbolts burst out. It was exceptionally dazzling. Yihanfei put his hands behind his back and floated in the air. He looked down at the figure that had been completely engulfed by the thunderbolts. His eyes were full of pride. You have some skills, but this is as far as you go. Thunderous Annihilation Trace is the ultimate move on my movement technique. It's extremely powerful. You will definitely die. Yihanfei smiled confidently. He felt that Long One was dead for sure. There was no way that he could survive. Boom. However, Yihanfei's smile did not last long. A powerful and blazing red light burst out from the thunderbolts. Immediately after, a figure covered in red light broke out from the thunderbolts. Under Yihanfei's incredulous gaze, he arrived in front of Yihanfei and ruthlessly slapped Yihanfei's handsome face. The slap carried a terrifying destructive force. Yihanfei's face was smashed. His flesh was badly mangled, and his broken bones were exposed. Yihanfei fell to the ground, and his body twitched. He struggled to stand up. Senior brother, Yi. The disciples of the Yin and Yang divine sect who were standing not far away gasped when they saw Yihanfei's face. The left side of Yihanfei's face was badly mangled. He did not look like a normal person at all. It was hideous and terrifying. Yihanfei's body twitched, and he struggled to get up. His face was burning with pain. In particular, a destructive force seemed to be constantly drilling into his flesh and trying to erode the structure of his body. Yihanfei was terrified. He desperately urged his strength to resist the strange destructive force. Zhuan slowly landed on the ground and looked indifferently at the battered Yihanfei. His slap just now was not simple. He had used the universal annihilation profound meaning. His slap carried the destructive force of the universal annihilation profound meaning. This force was like a poison. Once hit, it would continuously penetrate into the cultivator's body and continue to destroy the other tissues and organs in the depths of the cultivator's body. At this moment, the unlucky Yihanfei was obviously fighting against the destructive force that had entered his body. Zhuan slowly walked toward Yihanfei. The latter clearly saw Zhuan's actions. A trace of fear flashed in his eyes, and he began to retreat. Chapter 2975. Mountain Python Yihanfei was silent. He stomped his right foot and flashed out again. However, this time, he did not initiate an attack. Instead, he fled into the distance. Obviously, he knew that he was no match for Zhuan and intended to escape. Zhuan did not chase after him. Yihanfei's movement technique was very fast. He knew that with his current speed, he would not be able to catch up. Instead, he would be wasting his energy. In this strange world, Zhuan would not squander his energy as he wished unless he reached the point where he had to fight to the death. Did I allow you to leave? Zhuan turned his head and looked at the disciples of the Yin and Yang divine sect who were quietly retreating. His voice was cold and without a trace of emotion. The disciples of the Yin and Yang divine sect who had originally planned to quietly retreat trembled. They quickly knelt on the ground and begged Zhuan for mercy. They claimed that Yihanfei had ordered them to do this and that it had nothing to do with them. Since you are disciples of the Yin and Yang divine sect, I will give face to sect leader and hand over half of your spiritual rings. Zhuan said indifferently. Hearing this, the disciples of the Yin and Yang divine sect suddenly hesitated. In this world, the resources in the spiritual ring were too important. It was equivalent to life. Now, Zhuan wanted half of their spiritual rings. This was definitely an exorbitant demand. 2/3 of your spiritual rings. If you don't hand it over, then die. Zhuan was somewhat impatient and did not hide the murderous intent in his eyes. The disciples of the Yin and Yang divine sect trembled and quickly handed over 2/3 of their spiritual rings. They were afraid that if they continued to hesitate, Longwen would directly take away all of their spiritual rings. If that was the case, they would not be able to live for long in this world. After collecting everyone's spiritual rings and confirming that there were no shortcuts, he waved his hand and sent them away. Zhuan came to Jiang Qixing's side again and asked, "Brother Jiang, how are you now?" Jiang Qixing's limbs were obviously still unable to move, but he was much better than before. The primordial spirit protection pill was quite effective. However, Jiang Qixing's tendons had been severed at the same time and his injuries were very serious. Although the primordial spirit protection pill was effective, it would still take some time for him to fully recover. Let's rest here for a while and wait for Brother Jiang to recover. Zhuan decided to set up a temporary encampment halfway up the mountain and settled Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing inside. "All right, Brother Long. I received news from Yi Qidong that he and Zhong Li Haoyan have teamed up and discovered the exit to this world. However, that exit is guarded by a powerful exotic beast. Right now, they are gathering people to kill that exotic beast and leave this world." Just as Zhuan was about to leave the encampment and survey the surroundings, Jiang Qixing suddenly called out to him and handed a jade talisman to Zhuan. Zhuan opened the jade talisman and looked at it for a while before putting it away. His gaze became very serious as he returned it to Jiang Qixing and said, "Brother Jiang, thank you for telling me this." He was not familiar with either Yi Qidong or Zhongli Haoyan, so it was natural that he did not receive any news from them. However, this news was very important to him. After all, it was naturally best for him to be able to leave this world. If he had not met Jiang Qixing, he would not have received this news and missed the opportunity to leave this world. Therefore, he was somewhat glad. "Brother Long, you don't have to be so polite. With your strength, I think Yi Qidong and Zhongli Haoyan would be overjoyed if you want to help." After all, the two of them sent a message to gather everyone to help. Obviously, the exotic beast at the exit is very powerful. Even if Yi Qidong and Zhongli Haoyan teamed up, they would not have much confidence in defeating it. Jiang Qixing's expression was grave, and there was a hint of worry between his brows. "Yes, but no matter how powerful that exotic beast is, we must break out. Otherwise, we will only be waiting for death here. The coordinates Yi Qidong gave us should be 3 regions behind the mountain range we are in. Therefore, we must gather there. I will first look for an exit in this region. You guys can rest at ease and recuperate first." After Zhuan finished speaking, Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan both nodded, and Zhuan left the encampment. Zhuan stood halfway up the mountain, looking up at the layers of clouds above. He was unable to see where the peak of the mountain was. The direction Yi Hanfei had fled in was the peak of this mountain. He suspected that the exit to the mountain range should be on this mountain peak. After all, Yi Hanfei had also come from another region. Since he had not met Yi Hanfei in the grassland region, it could only mean that Yi Hanfei had come from another region. Zhuan knew the entrance to the mountain range through the grassland, but he did not know where the entrance to the other region was. However, he knew that Yi Hanfei definitely knew. "Let's go up and take a look." Zhuan's eyes flickered. He pushed off with his right foot and leaped into the air like a cannonball, rushing into the clouds above at an extremely fast speed. This mountain peak was very high. Zhuan flew for several hours in the hazy clouds, but he found that the surroundings were still white and there were no signs of reaching the peak. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, the clouds around him began to drift rapidly. Zhuan stopped, his gaze becoming very vigilant. The clouds were drifting rapidly, which meant that something was moving quickly in the clouds. Moreover, he was very sure that the drifting clouds had nothing to do with him. Obviously, something was rushing towards him. Could it be Han Fei? Zhuan had a strange look in his eyes, but he quickly rejected Yi Hanfei's idea. Yi Hanfei had just fought with him and suffered serious injuries. It was impossible for him to stay behind to ambush him, unless Hanfei's brain had short-circuited. Roar! Soon, the whistling sound approached, and a fishy wind blew over. Only then did Zhuowen see that it was a snow-white python. This giant python was hundreds of meters long, and its huge snow-white body circled around the mountain several times. Its pair of huge lantern-like eyes stared straight at Zhuowen, and there was a greedy light in them. I didn't expect it to be a beast. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and struck out with both hands. He performed the tyrannical skill of slaying Tao and combined it with the power of the Panga sacred body. He struck out with his palm, which seemed to have turned into an indestructible devil blade, standing on a giant python's head. Bang! What shocked Zhuowen was that the hardness of the giant python's head was far beyond his imagination. When his palm blade struck the giant python's head, it only caused the giant python to hiss in pain. It didn't even break through its skin. On the contrary, he was pushed back by the impact and staggered. The giant python roared in pain. Its eyes were full of murderous intent. It attacked Zhuowen again. Not far from Zhuowen, it opened its bloody mouth and spat out a cold storm. This storm was very terrifying. Everything it touched was frozen and shattered. Even the air seemed to be frozen and shattered by this storm. Zhuowen stepped on the void and performed the power of time and space. He disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already on the giant python's head. Chapter 2976. Iridescent Vinding. The sky-splitting blade was indeed extraordinary. It had actually pierced nearly a foot deep into the python's head. White blood spurted out, splashing onto Zhuowen's body. He could feel a chilling intent. He had not expected the python's blood to be ice cold. Swoosh! Feeling the pain, the giant python swung its huge tail towards Zhuowen's head. Zhuowen used the power of space-time again and disappeared. The huge tail struck the python's head. The giant python let out a blood-curdling screech. The strength of this tail strike was too great, directly causing it to feel dizzy and see stars. Zhuowen took advantage of this opening to leap up. The sky-splitting blade with both hands stabbed at the python's weak point. This was the python's weakest point. The sky-splitting blade easily pierced through the python's skin and entered its flesh. Zhuowen gripped the sky-splitting blade with both hands and quickly ran around the python's body. As he ran, the sky-splitting blade slashed through the python's vital point, leaving a huge wound on the python's body. White blood poured down from the python's body like a torrential downpour. The cold blood froze the surface of the mountain into crystalline ice. Zhuowen ran all the way to the python's head. He just happened to meet the wound on the head. Then, with a shout, he stabbed the sky-splitting blade downwards. Immediately, the python screamed miserably. Its entire body was cut in half by the sky-splitting blade. White blood splattered everywhere. It was a spectacular sight. After slaying the python, Zhuowen's breathing became slightly ragged. His face was pale. He did not immediately rush up. Instead, he found a crack in a mountain and took out a heavenly Tao origin crystal from his great world to recover his energy. 2 hours later, Zhuowen put away the remaining heavenly law origin crystals and continued climbing up the mountain. At the same time, he felt somewhat helpless. Every time he fought, he would need quite a few heavenly law origin crystals to recover. Although he had quite a lot of heavenly law origin crystals on him, he would soon run out if he continued to squander them like this. For the next few days, Zhuowen didn't encounter any danger. When he reached the top of the mountain, Zhuowen knew that the only danger on this mountain should be the giant python. This python was actually very powerful. It was most likely around the god of creation intermediate stage. If ordinary cultivators encountered it, they would most likely become its meal. Unfortunately, he met Zhuowen. Zhuowen couldn't help but think of the golden ant king he had encountered in the grassland. The giant python's strength was far inferior to the golden ant king. Zhuowen had no chance of winning against the golden ant king, but he could defeat the mountain python. From the looks of it, the guardians of different landforms in this world had different strengths. Something's wrong. Zhuowen realized that something was wrong. He thought of the Buddha yellow water bamboo he had obtained from the golden ant king's nest. He knew that the golden ant king was much more powerful than this mountain python, because of the Buddha yellow water bamboo. Without the Buddha yellow water bamboo, the golden ant king's strength should be about the same as this mountain python's. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. From the looks of it, he could determine whether there was some kind of powerful treasure hidden in a region based on the strength of the guardians of each region. Zhuowen found the giant python's nest at the top of the mountain. As he expected, there wasn't anything in the giant python's nest. There wasn't even any ordinary godly medicine. Aside from the giant python's nest, Zhuowen also found a rainbow vine at the top of the mountain. The vine was as thick as 10 people hugging it, and it stretched all the way to the sky. As it was really too tall, Zhuowen couldn't see where it led to. Zhuowen guessed that the end of the vine should be the path that led out of the mountain range and to the next region. Zhuowen didn't climb the vine. Instead, he went down the mountain and returned to the campsite at the mountainside. "Brother Long, is there an exit out of this region at the top of the mountain?" Jiang Qixing asked hopefully when he saw Zhuowen return. Zhuowen nodded and said, "At the top of the mountain, there is a huge rainbow vine that stretches to the boundless sky. I think that should be the path that leads to the next region." Zhuowen also told Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan about their encounter with the giant python on the mountain peak. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan weren't surprised. Before they met Zhuowen, they had also encountered several guardians of different regions. They weren't surprised that every region had a guardian. "Brother Jiang, Miss Yao, you two rest for a few days. Once you've recovered, we'll set off." After Zhuowen finished speaking, he randomly chose a place and sat down cross-legged. Time passed. 3 days later, Zhuowen left the mountainside with Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan and rushed towards the top of the mountain. There really is a 7-colored vine. This vine is so huge. Yao Xiangjuan stood at the top of the mountain and looked at the vine that connected heaven and earth in front of her. Her expression changed, and she felt that it was unbelievable. "This rainbow vine looks very long. If we really want to pass through it, I'm afraid it will take a lot of time." Jiang Qixing frowned slightly and said, "It should be, but this is the only way. We can only climb up honestly." Zhuowen nodded. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan also nodded in agreement. Next, the three of them climbed the rainbow vine with their bare hands. The three of them weren't ordinary people. They climbed the vine very quickly. After a while, the mountain peak below was completely out of sight. Half a month later, the three of them finally arrived at the end of the vine. They saw that the end of the vine was connected to an oval-shaped planet. Moreover, there were 7 huge pits on the surface of this blood-red planet. The moment Zhuowen saw this blood-red planet, he frowned slightly. He found that the shape of this blood-red planet was a bit like a heart that had stopped beating, especially the veins on the surface of this planet. They were too similar. Isn't this place the area that Yi Qidong told me about? I thought that we would have to pass through 3 or 4 areas before arriving here. I didn't expect that we would already be here." Jiang Qixing looked at the blood-red planet in front of him and couldn't help but rub his hands. Zhuowen looked thoughtful. When he saw this blood-red planet, he knew that this was the place that Yi Qidong had mentioned. "Let's go in first. Brother Jiang, after we go in, you can contact Yi Qidong and ask him to take us to see the exit of this world," Zhuowen said to Jiang Qixing. Jiang Qixing patted his chest and promised that there would be no problem. The three of them followed the vine and completely entered the planet. The moment they stepped onto the blood-red planet, Zhuowen immediately felt the blood in his body boil for a moment. His body stiffened. "Brother Long, what's wrong?" Jiang Qixing noticed Zhuowen's abnormal state and couldn't help but ask. Zhuowen came back to his senses and shook his head. "I'm fine. I just thought of something." Chapter 2977. Rift Valley. Jiang Qixing led the way, while Yao Xiangjuan and Zhuowen followed behind him silently. Yao Xiangjuan glanced at the young man beside her and was a little surprised. She found that the young man beside her had become silent ever since they entered the blood-red planet. "Long one, you've been quiet ever since you entered this place. Is there something on your mind?" Yao Xiangjuan asked first. Zhuowen came back to his senses and looked at Yao Xiangjuan blankly. He then shook his head and smiled apologetically. "It's nothing. I was just thinking about something. Yao Xiangjuan nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Turning his head, Zhuo Wen's gaze became serious. He was indeed thinking about something, and what he was thinking about was the blood-red planet. The moment he entered the blood-red planet, his blood and qi suddenly boiled. Although it only lasted for a short while, it still caused Zhuowen quite a lot of internal injuries. He also found that the Zhurong, Gomong, and Hutu parasites that had merged into his body all throbbed at that moment and let out muffled cries. Zhuowen could hear that the cries of the three parasites contained a trace of grief and sorrow. The only thing that can cause such a reaction from the three parasites is probably the Gongong parasite. It seems that Gongong's corpse isn't far from here. Zhuowen thought. The three of them walked for about 10 days and finally arrived at a very large rift valley. The rocks around the rift valley were all blood-red, as if the blood on the rocks had dried up. Jiang Qixing stopped at the entrance of the rift valley. To be more precise, he was blocked at the entrance. At the entrance of the rift valley, a colorful barrier blocked the path of Jiang Qixing and the other two. Zhuowen raised his head and looked at the barrier at the entrance. He could tell at a glance that this was a creator-level defensive formation called the Yellow Springs Divine Formation. It was quite powerful. At the very least, an ordinary creator-level formation wouldn't be able to break it. Of course, if Zhuowen wanted to, he could easily do so. Although he had just become a Genesis Stage Divine Array Master, he had also mastered Hongmeng Wuji, which specialized in breaking array formations. This made his ability to break array formations far superior to other Divine Array Masters. However, he didn't do so. Since there was a Genesis grade formation here, the Yiqi tunnel that Jiang Qixing had mentioned and the rendezvous point that Zhongli Haoyan had mentioned should be here. Jiang Qixing took out a communication jade talisman and sent a message. A group of people walked out of the Rift Valley, led by a beautiful woman. The most distinctive feature of this woman was the faint blue star in the middle of her forehead, which constantly flickered with starlight. Behind the woman was a group of people, all wearing uniforms with starlight embroidered on them. Clearly, they were from the same faction, and this woman was the leader of this group. Xingjing, I didn't expect you to arrive earlier than me. The moment Jiang Qixing saw the woman, his eyes lit up and he chuckled. At the same time, Jiang Qixing introduced the woman to Zhuowen and Yao Xiangjuan behind him. Zhuowen just nodded. He was no stranger to Xingjing. She was also one of the 5 great prodigies of the host region and the most outstanding genius of the Fallen Mountain. He had met her in the 10 Extremes Corps sect. Xingjing didn't care about Zhuowen and Yao Xiangjuan behind Jiang Qixing. Instead, she asked in surprise, Brother Jiang, where are the others from the sun-chasing temple? Why didn't I see them? Jiang Qixing looked embarrassed, but there was a hint of anger in his eyes. Xingjing sensed that something was wrong and continued to ask, did something happen? Jiang Qixing sighed and said, AI, it's a long story. My senior and junior brothers were all killed by Hanfei's group. I'm the only one left. If it wasn't for Brother Long's help, I'm afraid I would have died. Oh, is this the person who saved you from Hanfei? Xingjing's beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. She finally began to look at the scarred youth behind Jiang Qixing, but soon she furrowed her brows. She found that the scarred youth's aura was too weak. He was only the Lord of Profound Secrets. The Lord of Profound Secrets was only the second major realm of the second step of Tao validation. He was much weaker than an Eternal Overlord. Such a cultivation level might be considered decent among ordinary cultivators, but in front of the top geniuses of Tao palaces, it wasn't enough. Xingjing looked away and didn't say anything, but the contempt in her eyes didn't escape Zhuowen's eyes. He knew that Xingjing didn't believe Jiang Qixing's words. She didn't think he could save Jiang Qixing from Hanfei. Zhuowen shrugged helplessly. It seemed that his cultivation level was really too low. It was easy for others to look down on him. However, he didn't care. It was enough for him to know his own strength. There was no need to publicize it. It would be disadvantageous to him. Brother Jiang, come in first. Also, let me remind you that Fei arrived here before you. If he really is targeting you, you should be careful. After all, he's a genius second only to Yi Qidong and Zhongli Haoyan. Xing Jing took out a token. After opening the Great Array, he specially reminded Jiang Qisheng. Jiang Qisheng cupped his fists at Xing Jing and expressed his gratitude, then followed her into the depths of the valley. About a few miles away from the mouth of the valley, there was a large open space. In the open space, a group of people had gathered, but this group of people was clearly divided into two camps. After Zhuo and the others walked in, they realized that the two groups were the human race and the other race. After Xing Jing arrived, he immediately attracted the attention of many people in the open space. Even the foreign races cast their gazes over. Zhuo saw Zhongli Haoyan, Yi Qidong, and Yi Fei among the humans. The three of them were clearly the leaders of the human juniors. They sat at the front of the group and occupied the best seats. Zhongli Haoyan, Yi Qidong, and Yi Fei also looked over. Yi Qidong took a step forward and arrived in front of Xing Jing and the others. Junior sister Xing Jing, thank you for your hard work. Yi Qidong expressed his gratitude to Xing Jing meticulously. Then, he looked at Jiang Qisheng and patted the latter's shoulder. Brother Jiang, you're finally here. We were just waiting for you. Xing Jing's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of shyness, but it disappeared in a flash. Jiang Qisheng nodded and looked at the human camp. He discovered that the 5 great monsters of the host territory were all here except for Ghost Plume. Chapter 2978. The Abyssy Han Fei also saw Jiang Qisheng and the others, but he didn't look at Jiang Qisheng. Instead, he looked at Zhuo behind Jiang Qisheng, his eyes full of fear. In the previous battle, his face had been smashed by this kid, and it had taken him a lot of time to recover. It could be said that Yi Fei hated Zhuo to the bone. However, he was also full of fear. He knew that Long One was very strong. It was best not to provoke him. Yi Qisheng also felt Jiang Qisheng and Yi Fei's gazes and asked Jiang Qisheng, Brother Jiang, what's wrong? Jiang Qisheng shook his head. Nothing, just a small matter. Yi Qisheng didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he led Jiang Qisheng to the human camp and gave him a good seat. However, to Yi Qisheng's surprise, Jiang Qisheng didn't sit there. Instead, he gave it to the scarred youth beside him, whose cultivation base was only at the profound secrets masters. Brother Yi, he's called Long One. He's my savior, so he should sit first, Jiang Qisheng explained. Yi Qisheng made an O sound and didn't say anything else. Instead, he chose 2 other seats and arranged for Jiang Qisheng and Yao Xiangjuan to sit. The instant Zhuo sat down, he felt a fiery gaze land on his body. He turned around and found that the gaze came from the other side of the territory. He saw a very tall merman staring at him. When he saw Zhuo turn around, the merman grinned cruelly. Moses, Zhuo narrowed his eyes. This merman was the new merman genius sent after Sauron's death. He was also the most outstanding genius of a merman race, and was much more impressive than Sauron. Moses had been very unfriendly to him at the Gate of Darkness, and now, he didn't hide the malice in his eyes at all. He knew that as long as Moses had the chance, he would definitely attack him without any mercy. At the same time, he also noticed a gaze from the other races staring at him. The owner of this gaze was the saintess of the Phoenix people. Zhuo turned around and locked eyes with the saintess of the Phoenix people. His gaze was cold and gloomy. He had already confirmed that the saintess of the Phoenix people was not Mu Qinxue, so he naturally would not be nice to this woman. Furthermore, he could tell that the saintess of the Phoenix people was looking at him with a hint of malice. Thinking about the cooperation between the Phoenix people and the Merfolk race, he knew that the reason why the Phoenix people's saintess targeted him was probably because of the Merfolk elder MDA. Zhuo retracted his gaze and sneered in his heart. If these 2 people really intended to attack him, then Zhuo, would not mind revealing his trump card and fighting with them, especially the saintess of the Phoenix people. If he could capture her alive, then he could ask her about Mu Qinxue. All right, Saintess, Moses, the elites of our human race are all here. Is it the same for the other races? Zhongli Haoyin stood up and looked at the Phoenix people's Saintess and Moses. She asked indifferently. Moses did not speak and instead took the initiative to follow behind the Saintess of the Phoenix people. Clearly, he was following the Saintess' lead. The Phoenix people's Saintess smiled faintly and said, "We of the other races have been here for a long time. We have been waiting for you humans. Since you humans are all here, then bring us to that place. I'd like to see what exactly the powerful exotic beast you speak of look like. When you see it, you will definitely not be disappointed. Instead, you will feel despair." Zhongli Haoyin sneered and replied. She then led Yi Qidong and the others to the deepest part of the Rift Valley. The Phoenix people's Saintess did not care about Zhongli Haoyin's attitude. She gave an order and led the other races to follow. In the process of going deeper into the Rift Valley, the human and foreign races teams did not go one after the other. Instead, they went forward side by side. This was Zhongli Haoyin's request. She obviously did not trust the other races. Naturally, she would not let the other races team follow behind the human race team and leave the younger generation to the other races. Although Moses was unhappy, the Phoenix people's Saintess did not say anything, so he did not flare up. Zhuowen followed in the middle of the human race team. As they moved forward, he silently observed the environment around the Rift Valley. His gaze became serious. He found that the deeper they went into the Rift Valley, the more he found the skeletons of all kinds of creatures on both sides of the Rift Valley. Most of them should belong to the human race. Of course, there were also human skeletons, and the deeper they went, the more skeletons there were. In addition, the smell of blood in the air was getting thicker and thicker. At the same time, it was accompanied by a strange sense of oppression. This sense of oppression came from a mysterious place in the depths of the Rift Valley. It was as if there was a pair of eyes filled with brutality watching them from that place. "Brother Jiang, do you know anything about the strange beast at the exit?" Zhuowen asked Jiang Qixing in a low voice. Jiang Qixing's gaze was serious. He lowered his voice and said, "I don't know much. Brother, you only gave me a rough idea. It is said that this strange beast is related to that Gong Gong and has monstrous strength. Back then, Brother Yi and Zhongli Haoyin entered that place together and accidentally discovered that strange beast. In just one encounter, the two of them were injured. The two of them did not stay for long and immediately left that place." Zhuowen's pupil shrank. Zhongli Haoyin and Yi Qixing were the two most outstanding geniuses of the human race. The two of them could take down an ordinary creation lord if they joined forces. But when they encountered that strange beast, they were injured in one encounter. How terrifying was that strange beast? Thinking of this, Zhuowen looked around at everyone and couldn't help but shake his head. If that strange beast was really so terrifying, then they wouldn't be able to defeat it even if they joined forces. Wasn't that just courting death? Jiang Qixing also saw the worry on Zhuowen's face and continued, "Brother Long, you should be worried that the strange beast is so powerful that we might not be its match even with so many of us." Zhuowen nodded and didn't say anything. He just looked at Jiang Qixing. He knew that Jiang Qixing still had some information that he hadn't revealed to him. Jiang Qixing said solemnly, "That strange beast is indeed powerful. Even if we join forces with other races, we might not be able to defeat it. However, that strange beast is sealed at the exit. As long as we don't get too close to the exit, it won't be able to do anything to us. In fact, we don't need to defeat the strange beast. We just need to delay it for a period of time and then leave that exit." Zhuowen revealed a look of understanding. So that was how it was. Now that made sense. If the strange beast was really so powerful and there were no restrictions, then Yi Qixing and Zhongli Haoyin probably wouldn't have been able to escape. Half a day later, the group reached the end of the Rift Valley. In front of them was a bottomless abyss. Chapter 2979. Exotic Beast. The moment Zhuowen felt the cold air, he trembled slightly, as if all the blood in his body had frozen. This isn't normal cold air, right? Zhuowen's expression was solemn. The others' expressions also changed slightly. Some of the weaker ones rubbed their hands like mortals, tried to use this to warm themselves. The Phoenix people's saintess frowned slightly. She had the Phoenix bloodline and was born with the fire attribute. Naturally, she didn't like this kind of cold environment. Don't tell me the exit is in this abyss. The Phoenix people's saintess frowned. Zhongli Haoyan's beautiful eyes were serious. She raised her arm and signaled the human team behind her to stop. You guessed right. The exit is at the bottom of this abyss. Brother Yi and I have checked before. We can confirm it. Zhongli Haoyan said. However, there is a very powerful exotic beast at the bottom of this abyss. Brother Yi and I worked together to exchange a few blows with it. We barely made it out alive and almost died, Zhongli Haoyan said. You and Yi Qidong worked together and almost died. The Phoenix people's saintess and Moses both revealed shocked expressions. Zhongli Haoyan and Yi Qidong were very famous in the human race. The two of them had heard of them and knew that their strength far surpassed their peers. The two of them almost died even when working together. How powerful was that exotic beast? You sent us here to die, right? Moses said with a gloomy expression. That's not it. Although that exotic beast is powerful, it is sealed at the exit at the bottom of the abyss. It can only stay there and can't leave. We will work together to attack it from afar and exhaust it to death. Yi Qidong said calmly. Hearing this, the Phoenix people's saintess and Moses both revealed relieved expressions. They couldn't deal with powerful exotic beasts, but if it was sealed and couldn't move, it wouldn't be difficult to deal with it. No need to talk nonsense. Let's go down. After Zhongli Haoyan finished speaking, she jumped down first and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Yi Qidong, Yihan Fei, and the others also jumped into the abyss. Let's go too. The Phoenix people's saintess's beautiful eyes were calm as she led the team down. Brother Long, Junior Sister Yao, let's go down too. Seeing everyone enter the abyss, Jiang Qixing was also eager to give it a try. He greeted Zhuowen and Yao Xiangjuan, and the three of them also entered the abyss. The moment he entered the abyss, Zhuowen discovered that the cold air inside was much stronger than outside. When the cold air brushed past his body, he felt a bone-piercing pain. It was as if the cold air had penetrated his skin and entered the depths of his bones. Fortunately, he had cultivated the Pangu sacred body, which gave him a strong physique. He did not need to use the power of the Way of the Heavens to resist the invasion of the cold air. On the other hand, Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing both used their heavenly Tao power to create energy cloaks around their bodies to resist the invasion of the cold qi. The abyss was very deep. Even after falling for 3 days and 3 nights, they still hadn't reached the end. During this period, many cultivators began to use heavenly Tao origin crystals to replenish their energy due to their lack of energy. Even Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing were pale. They had no choice but to use heavenly Tao origin crystals to replenish their energy. However, the top geniuses like Zhongli Haoyan, Yi Qixing, and the Phoenix people's saintess, who had been leading the way, were still breathing steadily. It was as if they were not affected too much. A day later, everyone finally reached the bottom of the abyss. The bottom of the abyss was very large. Around them and under their feet, it was all frozen ice. What was more amazing was that the ice shone with a crystal-clear green light. The moment Zhuowen landed on the ground, he noticed that there was a thick and translucent icicle in front of the ice. The icicle looked very rough and irregular. However, the surface of the icicle shone with dense green lines. These lines were like the veins of a human body. Zhongli Haoyan and Yi Qixing silently stopped in front of the icicle. Their eyes were full of seriousness. The Phoenix people's saintess and Moses also came in front of the icicle. Moses' eyes flashed as he asked, "What is this icicle?" "This is the formation base that sealed the exotic beast. The exotic beast is behind this icicle. As long as we stay near the icicle, the exotic beast won't be able to do anything to us," Yi Qixing said. As soon as he said this, Both the humans and the foreign races looked behind the icicle. They found that there was only darkness behind the icicle. They were all puzzled. In the group, Zhuan's eyes became very serious. The moment he entered the bottom, he had already used his divine sense to scan the surroundings. He had indeed found a creature behind the icicle. To be more precise, the darkness behind the icicle was that creature. If his divine sense had not been tempered by the Panga banner, he really would have thought that it was just darkness. Who would have thought that the darkness was actually the creature sealed behind the icicle? At the same time, Zhuan finally understood why Zhongli Haoyin and Yi Qixing had been so heavily injured. After all, there was a seal here. As long as the two of them were careful, they wouldn't have been attacked by the creature. The two of them probably didn't know that there was a seal here. They also didn't know that the darkness behind the icicle was the creature's body. Therefore, they unknowingly entered the darkness and were attacked by the creature. The Phoenix people's Saintus and Moses were also surprised. They looked at the darkness in front of them and were even more puzzled. They had also used their divine sense to check, but other than the darkness behind the icicle, there was nothing else. There wasn't any exotic beast. Zhongli Haoyin sneered and didn't continue to explain. Instead, she formed a palm and suddenly blasted it out. A palm formed by white light instantly blasted behind the icicle. CICICI. The moment the palm blasted into the darkness, it actually froze as if it was blocked by something. Then the palm dissipated. This darkness is a bit strange. The Phoenix people's Saintess eyes were quite sharp. She immediately saw that there was something wrong with the darkness behind the icicle. Moses' eyes were also very serious. However, the other cultivators behind them were still confused. What's going on? Could it be that the exotic beast guarding the exit is invisible? Jiang Qixing asked in puzzlement. Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes were also filled with confusion. They clearly didn't see the truth behind the icicle. That darkness is the exotic beast body that Zhongli Haoyin and the others mentioned. Zhuan whispered to the two of them. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan were both shocked and looked at the darkness in disbelief. They really didn't suspect the darkness. More accurately, when they entered this place, they ignored the darkness from the beginning. They didn't even think about it. As expected of the Saintess, it seems that you saw through it. Yi Qixing said with a faint smile. The Phoenix people's Saintess' beautiful eyes were serious. She stretched out her hand and fiddled with her slender fingers. Suddenly, a terrifying and blazing flame lingered in her palm. This flame formed a rotating ring. Whoosh! Chapter 2980. Join hands. The moment the flaming ring blasted into the darkness, it suddenly exploded, forming a terrifying wave of fire that wreaked havoc. The terrifying temperature spread, causing many of the surrounding cultivators to involuntarily feel their faces turn red. Their cheeks were boiling hot as they retreated. At the same time, an earth-shattering shriek came from the darkness. Then, the darkness began to shake violently, sometimes to the left and sometimes to the right. The hissing sound became louder and louder as the darkness swayed. Zhuan could hear a monstrous anger from the roar. Many people in the human and foreign race teams also realized that something was wrong. They all stared at the swaying darkness, knowing that it was unusual. It can't be. Is this darkness really an exotic beast? This is the first time I've seen such a strange creature. Jiang Qixing was dumbfounded and couldn't help but mutter. Jiang Qixing wasn't the only one who was dumbfounded. Other than Zhuan, everyone else in the team was stunned. Clearly, they didn't expect this darkness to really be some kind of creature. Bang! 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 The mass of darkness suddenly rushed toward the Phoenix people's Saintess and Zhongli Haoyin. It was very fast, but when it reached the ice pillar, an invisible barrier seemed to appear. The mass of darkness directly hit the barrier. The powerful impact caused the surrounding ground to shake violently, as if the earth was about to split open. The mass of darkness hit the ice pillar's barrier while roaring loudly, its voice filled with violence and anger. At this moment, the mass of darkness finally revealed its true appearance. It was a creature that looked like a huge hunting dog. Its entire body was covered in sharp scales, and its eyes were filled with blood-red blood. The creature was very large, dozens of feet tall, but it was surrounded by a strange black gas. The black gas was probably a kind of camouflage. When the creature was motionless, the creature shrouded in the black gas was no different from an ordinary shadow. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the creature and a shadow. Back then, Yi Qidong and Zhongli Haoyan were deceived by this creature's disguise. They thought it was just an ordinary shadow, so they directly went behind the ice pillar. As a result, they were attacked by this creature. If it weren't for their strength, they would have been left here even if they reacted in time. What a strange creature. Its camouflage ability is so strange. If it weren't for the two of you, I wouldn't have been able to see through its camouflage. The Phoenix People's Saintess also had some lingering fears. Haha, it's natural that the Holy Maiden couldn't see through this bastard's disguise. Back then, we were also deceived by this bastard and paid a heavy price. Yi Qidong said with a bitter smile. Next, let's join forces to attack. This beast is not simple. If we fight it alone, none of us will be its opponent. The Phoenix People's Saintess said as she looked at the roaring dark creatures. Yes, we'll organize the human teams. As for the non-human teams, you can organize them. Zhongli Haoyan nodded. She returned to the human team with Yi Qidong and began to plan their next strategy. On the other hand, the Phoenix People's Saintess and Moses naturally returned to their tribe and began to methodically assign tasks to the others. Everyone, what we need to do next is to work together to defeat the beast sealed within this seal. However, I'll say this first. This beast's strength is very terrifying. Even if Hao Yin and I join forces, we won't be its opponent. So, when we attack this beast, we must use long-range attacks outside the ice pillars. Don't try to step into the ice pillars. Otherwise, you'll die without a doubt. Remember this. Yi Qidong's gaze was very serious. He began to arrange for everyone to stand neatly on one side. On the other side, the Phoenix People's Saintess and Moses arranged for the non-human teams to form a line. Everyone, start attacking. Use all the long-range attacks you can use. As soon as Zhongli Haoyan gave the order, everyone on the side of the human race immediately launched their own attacks. In an instant, colorful attacks flew out one after another. They were like dazzling neon lights that fell into the darkness in front of them. Bang, bang, bang. Countless sparks exploded. These attacks all landed on the body of the dark creature. Roar! The dark creature roared angrily and began to attack the seal outside with all its might. The entire area shook like a terrifying earthquake. After the human side launched their own attacks, the non-human side was also ready to attack. They used all the long-range attacks they could. The powerful attacks landed on the dark creature's body, causing the sparks on its body to become even more intense and concentrated. The dark creature roared in pain as it desperately slammed into the seal on the ice pillar. However, it was to no avail. The seal on the ice pillar was originally targeted at it. No matter how it struggled or slammed into the ice pillar, the final result would not change. Everyone's attacks became fiercer and fiercer, like dazzling fireworks during a festival. On the other hand, the dark creature realized that its efforts were futile. It retreated and dodged the oncoming attacks. Unfortunately, the combined attacks of the humans and non-human teams were too concentrated. The dark creature could only dodge a small portion of the attacks. The majority of the attacks still landed on its body. Time continued to pass. The humans and non-humans continued to attack without any regard for their lives. When the energy in their bodies was depleted, Yi Qidong and Zhongli Haoyan would take out many heavenly Tao origin crystals for everyone to use. The dark creature constantly dodged, but as time passed, the number of times it dodged decreased. Its movements became sluggish, and cherry-red blood even flowed out of its body. Seeing the dark creature in such a state, everyone became excited. They knew that the dark creature was beginning to get injured. the situation would probably get worse and worse. To them, it was naturally becoming more and more advantageous. Everyone work harder. This beast is about to die. As long as we kill this beast, we'll be able to leave this strange world. Yi Qi-dong shouted. As soon as Yi Qi-dong said this, everyone became excited. It was as if they had all been injected with chicken blood, and they all launched their attacks without any regard for their lives. The non-human side was the same. They were all fighting with their lives on the line. Roar! The dark creature roared at the sky, its voice filled with resentment and unwillingness. It was filled with hatred. If it were not for the seal, it would be able to destroy these ant-like fellows with a wave of its hand. But now, it was sealed, and it could only allow these ants to exhaust it to death with all kinds of attacks. This death was really too sullen. Chapter 2981. Suspended animation. Phew. Seeing the creature of darkness finally fall, everyone subconsciously let out a sigh of relief. The creature of darkness had given them a lot of pressure. Although they had been outside the seal the entire time, the terrifying commotion from the creature of darkness striking the seal, as well as the terrifying presence it released, made many of them feel extremely pressured. They all knew that this was an extremely terrifying creature. They could not face it head-on, or they would either die or be heavily injured. Yi Qi-dong and Zhong Lihaoyan looked at each other, revealing a relaxed smile. The exit is behind the creature. We've already investigated it before, so we know that there's a cave behind it. The cave contains the presence of heavenly way energy, so it must be the exit to leave this world. Zhong Lihaoyan pointed behind the creature of darkness. There was indeed a cave there, but it was very inconspicuous. It was only as tall as a person, and it was pitch black and bottomless. Zhuan's gaze also landed on the cave. He had indeed sensed the presence of heavenly way energy in the cave. He was not the only one. Everyone else sensed it as well, and they all became excited. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Yi Hanfei took the lead, rushing towards the cave. With Yi Hanfei taking the lead, Zhong Lihaoyan, Yi Qi-dong, and the others all entered behind the icicle. The foreign races were not to be outdone either. They entered at basically the same time as the human group. Zhuan followed behind. His divine sense landed on the creature of darkness without leaving a trace. Only after confirming that the creature of darkness was truly dead did his expression relax slightly. However, he still maintained a sliver of vigilance. The creature of darkness camouflage ability was the most powerful and bizarre that Zhuan had ever seen. It was not impossible for it to enter a state of suspended animation. Yi Hanfei was the first to arrive before the cave. He smiled, thinking that he could finally leave this crappy place. As long as he could leave this crappy place, he would be able to use some of his trump cards. At that time, he would seek revenge on Long One. Just as Yi Hanfei was daydreaming, he felt a gust of wind whistling in his ears the moment he stepped into the cave. Yi Hanfei's expression changed slightly. Soon after, he realized that a huge black tail was swinging towards him from his left. It was so fast that it seemed to have surpassed the speed of light. Yi Hanfei roared. He gathered all the heavenly Tao energy in his body and raised his arms to block in front of him. The black tail was too fast for him to dodge. He could only raise his hand to defend himself. Bang! The black tail slammed into Yi Hanfei's arms, and the sound of bones cracking rang out. At the same time, Yi Hanfei screamed miserably and was sent flying, crashing into the ground not far away. This sudden turn of events stunned everyone who was advancing. When they saw Yi Hanfei's miserable appearance and saw the black tail that suddenly attacked, they felt a chill in their hearts. Zhong Lihaoyan and Yi Qi-dong reacted the fastest. They immediately looked towards the corpse of the dark creature and saw that the corpse of the dark creature began to sway. Then, under everyone's gazes, it stood up. How was that possible? This exotic beast isn't dead? Impossible. I used my divine sense to investigate. This exotic beast's divine sense has clearly been destroyed. How can it still be alive? Everyone was stunned. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Whoosh! While everyone was still in shock, the Phoenix people Saintus and Moses suddenly took a step forward. Their speed soared, and they turned into black lightning. Their destination was the cave in front of them. Clearly, when the two found out that the exotic beast wasn't dead, their first thought was to leave this place. They didn't dare to stay here any longer. Everyone, run for your lives. We can't stay here for long. Zhongli Haoyin and Yi Qidong's expressions were ugly. After giving out their orders, they also used their movement techniques and rushed towards the cave. Roar! The black creature was covered in wounds. Blood kept flowing out of its body, and it was in an extremely sorry state. However, its violent aura made everyone tremble in fear. The black creature was very angry now, and the consequences were very serious. It was determined to kill everyone here and not let anyone escape. Seeing that the Phoenix people's Saintus and Moses had reached the entrance of the cave, the black creature suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already at the entrance of the cave, blocking in front of the Saintus and Moses. Boom! At the same time, the black creature raised its right claw and slammed it towards the Saintus and Moses. In fact, its aura was so powerful that it caused the air to explode. The Phoenix people's Saintus and Moses' expressions changed drastically. Although the black creature was seriously injured, the power of its claw was very terrifying. They didn't dare to be careless. The Phoenix people's Saintus shouted. Her pair of crystal white hands formed a complicated seal. Then, a phoenix tattoo appeared between her eyebrows. The strange thing was that this phoenix tattoo was black. The tattoo became brighter and brighter, and finally, a turbulent black flame burst out. As soon as the black flame appeared, it condensed into a black phoenix in the air. With a loud cry, the black phoenix spread its wings and flew towards the creature of darkness. Bang! The dark creature's right claw landed on the black phoenix. Then, the claw froze for a moment. It was actually blocked by the black phoenix. The Saintus's face was slightly pale. Obviously, using this move was very taxing on her. The moment she saw that the dark creature was blocked by the black phoenix, she moved like lightning and bypassed the dark creature. Then, she quickly rushed into the cave behind the dark creature. The moment the Phoenix people's Saintus entered the cave, Moses followed closely behind. However, at this moment, the dark creature roared and tore the black phoenix into pieces with its claw. It collapsed into countless black flames. Whoosh! The dark creature was very angry. Its right claw didn't reduce in power and slammed towards Moses. Moses' expression changed drastically. All the scales on his body suddenly stood up, and then a thick white fog was released. Then he punched out and hit the dark creature's right claw. Crack! Moses' right hand was torn apart, but he managed to block the dark creature's attack. At this moment, he immediately rushed into the cave. However, before the dark creature rushed into the cave, two figures took advantage of the time that Moses bought and successfully rushed into the cave. Moses also saw the true faces of the two figures. They were the humans, Zhongli Haoyin and Yi Qidong. Moses almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. He had made a dowry for the two of them. Although he was extremely depressed, Moses also knew that the situation was critical. He took the lead and rushed into the cave. Boom! The dark creature's attack missed and was very angry. It originally wanted to kill everyone, but it didn't expect that 4 people would break into the cave one after another. Chapter 2982. Suppression. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The dark creature no longer hesitated and suddenly rushed into the group of humans and foreign races. It waved its claws and showed no mercy. For a moment, there were miserable screams from the group. Blood splattered and gathered on the ground to form a bloody stream. Zhuowen looked gravely at the dark creature that was wreaking havoc in the group. His gaze fell on the cave behind the dark creature, and his face suddenly turned ugly. This was because he found that the cave entrance had been destroyed. Obviously, it was the work of the dark creature. The escape of the 4 of them had infuriated the dark creature, so it wasn't strange for it to do something so outrageous. Zhuowen was a little hesitant. If he was alone, he was confident that he could block the dark creature's attack, then go to the cave, smash the rocks in front of it, and enter the cave. But now that Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan were beside him, he could not leave them behind and enter the cave alone. Long One, you go in alone. Brother Jiang, and I will retreat outside the seal first. Yao Xiangjuan suddenly said. Her bright eyes stared at Zhuowen as if she had seen through Zhuowen's thoughts. Junior sister Yao is right. Brother Long, you don't have to worry about us. Go in first. Jiang Qixing also nodded. He knew how powerful this scarred young man was and knew that with his strength, it would not be a problem for him to bypass the dark creature's attack and enter the cave. No need. I'll block the dark creature. You guys take the opportunity to enter the cave. Zhuowen shook his head and did not wait for Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing to continue speaking. He took a step forward and rushed toward the dark creature. At this moment, the dark creature's right claw was like lightning. It had just blasted a foreign race into pieces and was about to kill another human when Zhuowen arrived in front of it. Boom! Zhuowen put his palms together and his body emitted a crystal-clear light. He then punched out and hit the dark creature's right claw. The dark creature narrowed its lantern-sized eyes in anger when it realized that a human ant had taken the initiative to attack. It wanted to kill this human ant who dared to provoke it. Bang! Zhuowen's fist landed on the dark creature's right claw, creating a terrifying explosion. A terrifying shockwave swept out, blowing Zhuowen's shoulder-length hair up to his shoulders. Zhuowen felt a strong pressure crushing his fist and spreading into his body, making him feel unbearable. At this moment, Zhuowen had a bad feeling because he realized that there was a big gap between him and the dark creature. Their strength difference was too great. Zhuowen crazily mobilized the power of the Pangu's sacred body, trying to block the right claw of the dark creature. However, he found that his right hand was getting heavier and heavier, as if it was really pressing down on a mountain. Roar! Just Zhuowen suddenly, the dark creature in front of him seemed to be panicking Transin. Its right Transin suddenly. The dark creature's Transin its right claw. Zhuowen's Transins. This scene immediately stunned all of the humans and foreign races present. They had personally experienced the power of the dark creatures. Even peerless geniuses like the Phoenix people's Saintus and Moses could barely block the dark creature's attack. However, this guy had directly neutralized the dark creature's attack. Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? Junior martial sister Yao, brother Jiang, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and rush over. Although Zhuowen was surprised by the sudden weakening of the dark creature, he knew that he needed to get down to business. Therefore, when he saw that Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing were still in a daze, he couldn't help but shout. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing were also shocked by Zhuowen's attack, so they stood rooted to the ground. Now that they were shouted at by Zhuowen, the two of them instantly sobered up and realized the severity of the matter. They didn't delay any longer and transformed into two bolts of lightning that flashed towards the cave. The moment Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing left, the eyes of the other outsiders and humans flashed as they followed them without hesitation. They finally understood that the scarred young man had attacked to buy time for his friends. Therefore, this was the best time for them to enter the cave. Naturally, they wouldn't waste such a great opportunity. Zhuowen naturally noticed the people following Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing, intending to take advantage of the situation. However, he didn't say anything. Anyway, his goal was to buy time for Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. If the others were lucky enough to follow them in, it would be because they were smart. Roar! The dark creature was enraged. He stomped his hind legs and dashed out like a bolt of lightning towards Zhuowen with a strong momentum. Zhuowen wasn't afraid at all. He even used the sky-splitting blade esoteric meaning. He held a long white blade in each hand and slashed at the dark creature. What surprised Zhuowen was that the moment he used the sky-splitting blade esoteric meaning, The dark creature's eyes revealed a look of fear. Moreover, its power had been weakened a lot. It didn't have the momentum and power it had when it first faced the Phoenix people's Saintus and the others. Zhuowen held the sky-splitting blade, esoteric meaning, and easily blasted the dark creature away, causing it to crash to the ground. The dark creature struggled to stand up. It looked at Zhuowen with some fear in its eyes. It paced back and forth on the spot, roaring at Zhuowen. However, it didn't dare to attack again. The Panga's sacred body has a suppressive effect on this guy. Zhuowen's eyes lit up as he thought of the physique of his clone. To be more precise, he felt that the 3 ancestral wizard worms of the Panga's sacred body had an absolute suppressive effect on this dark creature. If he guessed correctly, this dark creature should be a creature that was kept in captivity by the ancestral wizard Gongong when he was alive. Therefore, the dark creature was very sensitive to the aura of the ancestral wizard. Zhuowen deliberately concealed the aura of the ancestral wizard on his body at first, so the dark creature didn't notice it. However, when Zhuowen unleashed the power of the Panga's sacred body, the dark creature immediately felt the aura of the ancestral wizard. It was also suppressed and feared by the aura of the ancestral wizard. This was also the reason why Zhuowen could defeat this dark creature so easily. At this moment, Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, with the help of the others, had blasted open the sealed cave, revealing the dark entrance inside. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing stopped at the entrance of the cave, ignoring the humans and aliens who swarmed in. Instead, they turned around and looked at Zhuowen worriedly. Although Zhuowen's great power had surprised the two of them, they still didn't think that Zhuowen would be a match for this dark creature. However, when their gazes landed on Zhuowen, their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 2983. Entanglement. Zhuowen didn't leave the cave immediately. Instead, he stood in place and stared at the dark creature with a grave expression. He realized that while the dark creature's eyes were filled with fear, there was also a hint of greed in the dark creature's eyes. Moreover, the dark creature's aura had completely locked onto him. If he immediately rushed toward the cave, the dark creature would definitely stop him. Zhuowen glanced at the many human clan and foreign clan cultivators swarming into the cave. Then he saw Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing standing at the entrance of the cave and looking at him. "Brother Jiang, junior sister Yao, you guys leave first. I'll be there soon." Zhuowen transmitted his voice to Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan hesitated, but in the end, they nodded. In fact, when they saw that the dark creature was suppressed by Zhuowen, they knew that it couldn't do anything to Zhuowen. "Be careful." Just as Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan were about to turn around and enter the cave, Zhuowen's anxious voice suddenly sounded. The two were stunned at first. Then they felt a strong gust of wind whistling from behind them. Their reaction wasn't slow. They immediately turned around, stirred up the heavenly energy in their bodies, and put their hands in front of them in a defensive posture. Bang! The gust of wind whistled, and the two immediately felt pain in their arms. They were involuntarily sent flying by a force. Blood spurted out, and they were in an extremely sorry state. The two struggled to open their eyes in midair, and only then did they see the true face of the person who attacked them from behind. Ihan Fei. When Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing saw the true face of the person who attacked them, they were shocked. They never thought that it would be a human clan cultivator who attacked them. "Hee, the two of you stay here. This dark creature is enough to make you suffer. As for that little bastard Long One, if he can come out alive, I'll wait for him on the other side and take his dog life." Ihan Fei sneered. He glanced at Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, then turned his gaze to Zhuowen. His eyes were filled with provocation and disdain. Zhuowen's eyes were cold, but his heart was filled with killing intent. This Ihan Fei really didn't know what was good for him. Even at this time, he still dared to provoke him. Although Zhuowen could still catch up with Ihan Fei, He had to take care of Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan. Yihan was very sinister. He had sent Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan flying in the direction of the dark creatures. The intelligence of the darkness creature wasn't low. It could tell that Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing had a good relationship with the scarred youth. It suddenly opened its bloody mouth and swallowed Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, who were flying back. Zhuowen had no choice but to give up on chasing Yihan. He could only watch as Yihan disappeared into the cave with a smug smile on his face. Zhuowen then turned around and rushed towards Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan. Zhuowen was very fast, but the dark creature was even faster. It arrived in front of Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing before Zhuowen. It opened its bloody mouth and was about to swallow the two. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing kept struggling, but they had consumed too much energy here and were seriously injured by Yihan sneak attack. Their struggles were very weak in front of the dark creature. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He knew that he couldn't make it in time, so he grabbed the air with both hands and condensed two slender sky-splitting blades. He then swung his hands and threw the sky-splitting blades. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two white lights shot out, aiming at the dark creature's bloody mouth. The dark creature also knew that Zhuowen's sky-splitting blades were unusual. Its eyes showed fear, and it didn't dare to take them head-on. It took several steps back. Zhuowen took advantage of the gap between the dark creature's retreat and rushed to Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing's side. He rolled up his sleeves and wrapped them up, then quickly retreated. Zhuowen wanted to rush into the cave directly, but the dark creature obviously knew Zhuowen's intention and blocked the entrance of the cave in advance. Although his Panga's sacred body had a suppressive effect on the dark creature's physical body was extremely terrifying. It was even more terrifying than his 5-star peak Pangu sacred body. Although Zhuowen had beaten up just now, Zhuowen knew that the beast didn't actually suffer much injury. It was just afraid of Zhuowen's Pangu sacred body and the aura of the 3 ancestral wizard insects. Zhuowen had no choice but to withdraw from the ice pillar with Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan. "Brother Long, I'm sorry. We've dragged you down," Jiang Qixing said with some shame. Yao Xiangjuan also lowered her head. Her beautiful eyes were full of apology. Zhuowen waved his hand and said, "It's not your fault. Yihan is too cunning and shameless. I can't believe he would do such a thing at such a time." Yao Xiangjuan's expression turned ugly. "I didn't expect Yihan to be so shameless. He's the top genius of the Yin and Yang divine sect, and the top genius ranked 3rd on the Starry Sky contribution list. How could he be so despicable? I've misjudged him. Yihan has always held a grudge against me for defeating him. It's not surprising that he would target me now." Zhuowen shook his head. He wasn't too surprised, but Yihan had been completely blacklisted in his heart. After leaving this world, if he were to meet Yihan again, he would kill him. "There's only 3 of us left." Jiang Qixing smiled bitterly. Zhuowen had originally wanted to buy time for the 2 of them to leave this place. In the end, the 2 of them didn't leave this place. Instead, they allowed the other humans and foreign races to take advantage of the chaos to leave this place. This was really making a wedding dress for others. "I'll do it again. Follow behind me. Once I've completely stalled this exotic beast, you can take the opportunity to enter the cave," Zhuowen said and stepped into the ice pillar again. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan exchanged a glance and followed closely behind. Roar! The moment Zhuowen stepped into this place, the dark creature roared and rushed over, mercilessly attacking Zhuowen's group. This beast has become so cunning. Zhuowen's face turned extremely ugly because he found that the dark creature's target was no longer him, but Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing behind him. In order to protect the 2 of them, Zhuowen could only constantly deal with the attacks of the dark creatures. This, in turn, increased the pressure on him. After all, he was not alone. He still had to take care of Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, which made him feel somewhat exhausted. Chapter 2984. Cooperation Bang. Zhuan was forced back by the bombardment, his face slightly pale. He had to take care of two people at the same time, so the pressure was great. Destiny Space-Time Kill. Zhuan roared and used his newly created divine ability, Destiny Space-Time Kill. A long purple river rushed out from the void behind Zhuan and rushed straight toward the dark creature. The purple river wrapped around the dark creature, confining the space-time around it. The purple river began to bombard the dark creature's body like a meat grinder. However, the dark creature's physical body was very strong. Although it was bombarded by the purple river, blood splattered everywhere. It was riddled with wounds. It was not destroyed by the bombardment. Instead, it forcibly withstood it, albeit in a somewhat sorry state. You two go first. Zhuan turned around and said to Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing, who were in a daze. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan also knew that now was not the time to be in a daze, so they immediately flew out and entered the cave. However, the two did not enter the depths of the cave. Instead, they looked at Zhuan from the entrance. Jiang Qixing hurriedly said, "Brother Long, you come over quickly." Zhuan nodded and glanced at the dark creature, still trapped in the purple river. He stepped out with his right foot and rushed toward the cave. However, the moment he took a step forward, the purple river collapsed. The dark creature was like a bolt of black lightning, rushing in front of Zhuan. Moreover, the dark creature was very smart. It did not directly attack Zhuan, but instead attacked Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing at the entrance of the cave. "You two, go quickly!" Zhuan shouted and clenched his fists, forming two sky-splitting blades. He leaped up and stabbed the sky-splitting blades into the back of the dark creature. Poochie! The sky-splitting blades easily sank into the dark creature's back. Blood spurted out like a fountain, looking extremely bloody and mournful. The dark creature was furious and no longer cared about Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. It began to shake its body frantically, trying to throw Zhuan off its back. It must kill this hateful human. He actually dared to launch a sneak attack on it. It only felt an unbearable pain on its back, as if it was on fire. "Why aren't you leaving?" Zhuan's eyes were calm. He held the sky-splitting blades with both hands and looked at Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan at the entrance of the cave. Although Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan were very worried about Zhuan, they knew that they should not stay here for long. After all, they were burdens for Zhuan. The longer they stayed, the more Zhuan would be at a disadvantage. "Brother Long, we'll wait for you at the entrance." After saying that, Yao Xiangjuan disappeared into the cave with Jiang Qixing. After finally sending Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing away, Zhuan heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Immediately, he narrowed his eyes and looked at the crazy dark creature below. "If you're really a creature raised by Ancestor Gonggong, then I don't believe that you're not afraid of this thing," Zhuan murmured in a low voice. 3 streams of light suddenly swept out from his body. Each stream of light had a different color. They were fiery red, turquoise, and brownish yellow. These 3 streams of light were naturally the 3 types of ancestor sorcery goo insects, Zhurong, Gomong, and Hutu, which had been integrated into Zhuan's Panga sacred body. The 3 types of goo insects exuded a powerful aura unique to the ancestor sorcery. After sensing the aura of the ancestor sorcery from the 3 types of goo insects, the originally crazy dark creature suddenly froze. Its eyes revealed a human-like look of fear. It stopped on the side and kept roaring at the 3 types of goo insects floating in front of it. However, it did not dare to move at all. Zhuan slowly jumped down from the dark creature's back and walked to the center of the 3 types of goo insects. He looked at the dark creature in front of him with bright eyes. It seemed that his guess was right. This dark creature might really have a lot to do with Ancestor Sorcery Gonggong. Otherwise, it would not be so sensitive to the aura of the Ancestor Sorcery. Zhuan's mind stirred. The 3 types of goo insects immediately separated into 3 directions and surrounded the dark creature in the center. Woo! The dark creature hurriedly lay on the ground, trembling. It did not even dare to look at the 3 types of goo insects surrounding it. Zhuowen strode to the front of the dark creature. The dark creature hurriedly worshipped Zhuowen and begged for mercy. Zhuowen stood where he was. His eyes flickered and he said in a deep voice, "You should understand what I said, right? Now let me ask you, is this really the place where Gong fell?" Although he had some guesses about this place, he still wanted to confirm it with the dark creature. The dark creature quickly nodded and sent a spirit power to Zhuowen. "Human, Lord Gong is my master. This is not the place where my master died. Instead, this is my master's inner world." "Your master's inner world?" Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Recalling the moment he entered this blood-red planet, he felt that his blood was boiling. "Is this blood-red planet Gong's heart?" said Zhuowen in a deep voice. "And the other areas are the other parts of Gong's body?" The dark creature nodded and looked at Zhuowen in surprise. Apparently, it didn't think that this human could figure this out. "So, is the other end of the cave the exit of Gong's inner world?" Zhuowen continued asking. "That's true. Back then, my master told me to guard the exit and not let anyone in. Sadly, I failed him." The dark creature showed a shameful look and said with a muffled voice, "Then where are the goo worms in Gong's body?" Zhuowen's eyes flickered and his breathing became rapid. He hurriedly asked the dark creature. The dark creature hesitated and fell silent. Obviously, it didn't want to say. "Do you think you have any other choice now? If you tell me where Gong's goo worms are, you might still be able to survive. Otherwise, you know the consequences," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. His Pangu's sacred body had been stuck at the peak of 5 stars for a long time. As long as he got Gong's goo worms, he would be able to break through and become a 6-star Pangu sacred body. Once his Pangu's sacred body became a 6-star Pangu sacred body, his strength would change dramatically. Ordinary creation masters might not be able to do anything to him, unless they were at the peak of creation masters or above. The dark creature trembled and showed a struggling look. In the end, it sighed and said, "Even if I take you there, you can't get my master's goo worms. My master's goo worms were corroded by my master's evil thoughts when he was alive. They are completely crazy." Chapter 2985. Fury. "You just need to take me to the place where the goo worm is sealed. As long as you can do that, I'll let you go," Zhuowen said. The dark creature shook his head and asked, "Can you take me out of here? I've been sealed here for too long. I've endured the loneliness for too long. I want to go out and have a look." Zhuowen sized up the darkness creature and discovered that the latter's eyes were indeed filled with a desire to leave this place. After pondering for a moment, Zhuowen nodded and said, "I can bring you away. However, you must first swear to the heavens." The dark creature quickly nodded and swore to the heavenly Tao. "You just need to break the icicle in front of you, and I'll be able to break free from this seal." The dark creature pointed at the icicle in front of him. Zhuowen didn't say anything else. He arrived before the icicle with a single step and suddenly punched out with his right fist. He smashed it against the icicle, causing him to let out a muffled groan. He was actually forced back by the mysterious energy on the icicle. There's a restriction on the surface of the icicle. Your master is really watertight." Zhuowen's gaze was filled with astonishment. That dark creature smiled bitterly. "My master has always known that I desire freedom. He was afraid that after he died, I would leave this place and no longer protect his corpse and the origin goo worm. Thus, he used a sealing method to keep me here forever to protect him." Zhuowen nodded. He didn't think there was anything wrong with what the dark creature said. Instead, he began to carefully study the restriction on the icicle. What made Zhuowen speechless was that the restriction on the icicle wasn't of a high level. It was only at the Genesis level. It wasn't difficult for him to break such a restriction. It seemed that the rumor that the alien races in the untainted heavenly realm weren't good at alchemy and formations was quite reliable. Gong was a powerful ancestor magus after all, but he was only able to set up a creation-level magic formation, not to mention those weaker, non-humankind beings. Zhuowen sat cross-legged in front of the ice pillar. With a wave of his sleeve, he summoned the beast bone formation disc. His hands formed a seal, and he began to break the formation. About an hour later, a cracking sound could be heard from the surface of the icicle. Zhuowen had completely broken the restriction placed on the surface of the icicle. The dark creature was dumbfounded. It didn't expect this human cultivator to be a formation Dao, a divine master, who was proficient in formation Dao. He was able to break the restriction set up by its master so easily. Rumble. The moment the restriction was undone, Zhuowen punched out again, easily destroying the icicle. The icicles were destroyed, and the surrounding brilliance flickered. The barrier that enveloped the dark creatures collapsed and disappeared. The dark creature's eyes were filled with ecstasy as it hurriedly thanked Zhuowen. "All right, now you should take me to Gong's goo bugs, right?" said Zhuowen coldly. The dark creature nodded. Its eyes became serious. It pointed at the cave and said, "The goo bugs are not in Master's body. They are in a dimensional world that Master created before he died. This cave should lead to that dimensional world, right?" Zhuowen asked. "Yes. Now come with me." The dark creature nodded and led Zhuowen into the cave. The cave didn't look spacious from the outside, but was very spacious inside. It was like another dimension. A chilly aura permeated the air, and Zhuowen's entire body shivered. It felt like even his bones were about to crack from the cold. The dark creature led the way meticulously, and Zhuowen followed in silence. 2 hours later, the dark creature and Zhuowen finally left the cave and came to the end. The moment they walked out of the cave, a bright white light shone over them. Even Zhuowen couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He looked around and found that what appeared in front of him was a dark space. The dark space was very strange. Huge gears floated in the air one after another. The gears were all different in shape, and the light they gave off was different as well. They were gray, black, green, red, and so on. The gears were like stars in the outside world. They gave off a faint light, embellishing the space with various colors. Beneath the void, there was a dark gray land. On this land, there were grayish-black withered branches that looked like ferocious ghosts baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Beneath the withered branches were piles of beast skulls and human skeletons. There were countless of them. The entire dark land was filled with a dense aura of death. Zhuowen also found that there was finally heavenly energy in this world, and it was extremely dense. He knew that he had really left Gong's dimensional world this time. The exit of the cave Zhuowen was in was a huge withered branch. The withered branch looked like a bloody mouth. It was facing the exit of the cave as if it wanted to devour every cultivator who came out. Zhuowen looked around and didn't see Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. He frowned slightly. He had only come out about 4 hours later than the two of them. Logically speaking, Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing should have been waiting at the exit for a while, but he didn't see them. Did they leave as soon as they came out? Zhuowen was still a little worried. So he used the art of divination and found that Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing were in a very bad situation. Yihan Fei. Zhuowen quickly thought of Yihan Fei. Among the human race, the only person Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing had a grudge against was Yihan Fei. As for the other races, they must have gone all out to find Gong's corpse after entering this place. How could they have the time to deal with Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing? "Human, do you want me to take you directly to where my master's goo worms are?" The dark creature turned around and asked Zhuowen. "Wait, I still have some things to deal with. Come with me for the time being." Zhuowen said and took the lead to rush in a direction. He had used the art of divination just now to calculate the approximate location of Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. He only calculated that the two of them were in a bad situation. He didn't know why, but he could guess that it must have something to do with Yihan Fei. Yihan Fei had taken advantage of the gap between Zhuowen and the dark creature to enter the cave and injure Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. He had already angered Zhuowen. Now that Yihan Fei was unwilling to let him go and even went to find his friends after leaving the cave, Zhuowen couldn't be blamed for not being polite. Ihan Fei, you're courting death. Don't blame me for being merciless. Zhuo Wen's eyes shone with a cold light as he flew. His speed increased by a lot once again. Chapter 2986. Hurrying over in a gully in a gray area, a handsome young man was sitting leisurely on a thick branch of a huge withered tree. His back was leaning against the tree trunk that was as thick as 3 people's arms. The handsome young man had a playful expression on his face. His gaze fell on the 2 figures under the tree, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The 2 figures were a man and a woman. The man was quite strong, and his wheat-colored skin exuded a healthy complexion, while the woman was extremely beautiful, enough to make many women jealous. However, the man and woman were surrounded by a ring of red energy. The red energy emitted a scorching hot aura and was extremely destructive. The 2 of them had their backs against each other, and their expressions were rather unsightly. From their panting appearance, it could be seen that they were barely able to resist the red energy band around them. Ihan Fei, why do you keep targeting us? You're actually waiting for us at the exit. You're a genius of a human clan, but instead of dealing with the foreign races, you're attacking us. Don't you feel ashamed? The man in the red energy band looked angrily at the handsome young man on the withered tree and could not help but berate him. The handsome young man sitting on the withered tree was the strongest genius of the Yin and Yang divine sect, Ihan Fei. The man and woman trapped by the red energy band were naturally Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, who had just parted with Zhuowen. Originally, the 2 of them had smoothly passed through the cave and planned to wait for Zhuowen at the exit. However, they never expected that as soon as they came out of the cave, they would be ambushed by Ihan Fei, seriously injured, and then brought here. The red energy band was a kind of torture tool called the blood shrink. It would constantly shrink as time passed, constantly compressing the cultivator trapped in the blood shrink. When the blood shrink was completely closed, the cultivator trapped inside would be crushed into a bloody pulp. This was a very cruel torture. It would not immediately kill you, but through this continuous compression, it would create a strong sense of fear, causing the person to eventually die of fear. Obviously, Ihan Fei wanted to watch Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan slowly die of fear like this. Haha, what does this have to do with the foreign races? You colluded with Long One to insult me. Have you ever considered our friendship as fellow human beings? Today, I just want to wash away the humiliation that you and Long One brought me. But don't worry, after you die, I will go and find that Long One again. I will forcefully kill him and make him accompany you in the underworld, so that you will also have a companion. A cruel smile appeared on Ihan Fei's face. When he thought about the scene of him finding Long One and killing him, he felt a perverted pleasure. You were just defeated by Brother Long. Even if you fight Brother Long again, the final result won't change at all. You'll definitely lose, Jiang Qixing said coldly. Really? Ihan Fei didn't care at all. Instead, he looked at Yao Xiangjuan and said, Junior apprentice Sister Yao, you also think that Long One will be my match. In this world filled with the energy of the heavenly Tao, I can use all my trump cards. I think Junior Sister Yao knows a little about trump cards, right? Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes changed slightly, revealing a trace of worry. Jiang Qixing also noticed a change in Yao Xiangjuan's expression and felt a little nervous. Could Ihan Fei really have some powerful trump cards? In fact, after Ihan Fei said those words, he already somewhat believed it, because he also had his own trump cards. Back in that strange world, because there was no heavenly Tao energy, he couldn't use them. Now that he was out, he could naturally use such a trump card. However, he had already used such a trump card, but it had been easily broken by Ihan Fei. The gap between the 2 of them was still a little big. Ihan Fei was much stronger than him, so he didn't find it strange that he had a more powerful trump card. As for Long One, Jiang Qixing was actually not confident that the former would have a powerful trump card because as far as he knew, Long One seemed to be just a loose cultivator. Ihan Fei was backed by a Tao Palace force like the Yin and Yang divine sect, while Long One was just a loose cultivator. The difference in background between the two was huge. Jiang Qisheng didn't need to think to know that Long Wen definitely didn't have any powerful trump cards. Jiang Qisheng even believed that the trump cards on him might be stronger than Long Wen's. When he thought up to this point, Jiang Qisheng was slightly worried, but he wasn't worried that his life would be in danger. He knew that Yi Hanfei had captured them and was determined to kill them. He knew that it would be impossible for them to escape this calamity. He was worried about Long Wen because Long Wen clearly didn't know that Yi Hanfei had some sort of powerful trump card. If Yi Hanfei found Long Wen again and they fought again, then perhaps Long Wen would suffer a huge loss. Long Wen had helped him a lot, and he wasn't an ungrateful person. However, he was slightly helpless. He couldn't even protect himself now, let alone warn Long Wen. Moreover, Yi Hanfei had destroyed his communication jade talisman, so it was quite impossible for him to use it to contact Long Wen. Junior Sister Yao, are you afraid that you'll regret it? Actually, I just need a single word from you, and I'll let you go. Yi Hanfei's gaze descended onto Yao Xiangjuan, and there was a trace of a strange expression in the depths of his eyes, while an ambiguous smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes coldly glanced at Yi Hanfei and said, Yi Hanfei, don't think too much. I'd rather follow a beast than follow you. Yi Hanfei looked angry and said hatefully, since you don't know how to appreciate kindness, then I won't persuade you anymore. You'd better go to hell with Jiang Qisheng. With that, Yi Hanfei waved his sleeve, and the red energy belt that was originally revolving around Jiang Qisheng and Yao Xiangjuan began to shrink faster. Jiang Qisheng and Yao Xiangjuan suddenly felt the pressure, and fine beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads as they constantly urged their energy to stop the shrinking of the blood belt. Unfortunately, their efforts were clearly useless as they couldn't stop the shrinking of the blood belt at all. The two sighed in their hearts, knowing that they couldn't escape this calamity. Although they were unwilling to die like this, there was nothing they could do. Just as the two closed their eyes and waited for death, the sound of rushing wind suddenly swept over like a sudden thunderclap, and it was exceptionally ear-piercing. Yi Hanfei raised his head slightly and noticed a black in the distance, and his eyes narrowed. When he saw the appearance of the person coming, his eyes revealed a trace of excitement, and he suddenly stood up and laughed. Long Wen, there's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you insist on barging in. Chapter 2987. A dark creature suddenly appeared. Yi Hanfei roared with laughter as he leaped into the air, transforming into a streak of light as he charged toward Zhuowen. Yi Hanfei was very confident. In this environment filled with heavenly Tao energy, he could fully unleash the power of a late-stage god of creation. He was several times stronger than when he was in that strange world. He knew that if he faced Long Wen again, he would be able to crush him even if he didn't use his trump cards. Brother Long, you have to be careful of Yi Hanfei. Jiang Qisheng and Yao Xiangjuan also noticed Zhuowen and hurriedly warned him. Zhuowen was expressionless as he hurried over. He soon discovered that Yi Hanfei had appeared in front of him at some point. Yi Hanfei's aura was several times stronger than before. This was clearly due to the presence of heavenly Tao energy. Long Wen, go to hell. Yi Hanfei's right fist was filled with blazing golden light that was even more dazzling than the sun. It instantly arrived in front of Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes were cold as he stretched out his right hand and grabbed Yi Hanfei's fist. The power of his peak 5-star Pangu sacred body erupted. Crack! Then, Zhuowen suddenly twisted, and Yi Hanfei's right hand was broken. Yi Hanfei screamed in pain. However, just as Yi Hanfei screamed, Zhuowen raised his left hand and slapped Yi Hanfei's face. The loud slap completely covered Yi Hanfei's screams. Yi Hanfei was directly smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. Zhuowen ignored Yi Hanfei and slowly landed in front of Jiang Qisheng and Yao Xiangjuan. Jiang Qisheng and Yao Xiangjuan were completely stunned. They didn't expect that Fei, who was at his peak, would be so weak in front of Zhuowen. Could it be that they were hallucinating? Torture and blood contraction? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes as he looked at the red energy ribbons around Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, his expression unfriendly. This Fei was really too much. He actually used torture tools for interrogating prisoners on Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan. He was planning to slowly torture them to death. You two wait. I'll break this blood contraction. Zhuowen's expression turned serious. With a wave of his sleeve, he produced a formation disc made of beast bones. Then, he performed a double-handed incantation gesture and began to break the blood contraction. The essence of the blood shrinkage was also a kind of array formation restriction, so it was not difficult for Zhuowen to break it. While Zhuowen was breaking the blood contraction, Fei suddenly rushed out of the pit not far away. His expression was somewhat miserable, but his eyes were filled with anger and a trace of fear. Just now, he was actually slapped to the ground by Long Wen without any resistance. Long Wen's strength was actually much stronger than before. This guy is trying to decipher the blood contraction. Hee, is he completely ignoring me? Hee, I'll make you pay a painful price. Fei soon noticed Zhuowen not far away, who was breaking the blood contraction. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth, and then he took out 3 talismans of different colors. The 3 talismans were red, yellow, and blue. Fei performed a double-handed incantation gesture and summoned the 3 talismans. Suddenly, the surface of the talismans emitted 3 kinds of dazzling brilliance, and then they floated around Fei's body like a protective umbrella. The moment the 3 talismans revolved around him, Fei's aura became much more powerful than before. His aura had also undergone an earth-shattering change. Whoosh! Fei stomped on the ground and shot out like an arrow. Due to the 3 talismans around him, the afterimages he left behind were of 3 different colors. Brother Long, be careful. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing naturally saw Fei's momentum soar after summoning the 3 talismans, and they both cried out in alarm to warn Zhuowen. Long Wen, don't worry about us for now. Fei is attacking you now, so you deal with him first. Yao Xiangjuan said anxiously. However, Zhuowen shook his head and said, the blood contraction is about to begin. There's no time to waste. Otherwise, all of you will die. How can you be like this? If you don't stop, all 3 of us will die. Yao Xiangjuan stomped her foot and said. However, Zhuowen acted as if he didn't hear her, and he meticulously continued to break the blood contraction as if Fei didn't exist. You still dare to ignore me at a time like this? Very well. It seems like you don't even want to live anymore. Fei's heart was filled with anger, and the killing intent in his eyes rose to the extreme. He must make this guy who dared to ignore him several times regret for the rest of his life. Soon, Fei rushed behind Zhuowen and slammed his right hand forward. 3 talismans condensed into 3-colored energy that gathered in Fei's palm, and then fiercely slammed into Zhuowen's back. Fei's attack borrowed the power of the 3 talismans, and it was many times more powerful than before. It's over. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing saw that Fei had already rushed behind Zhuowen, and his palm was fiercely aimed at Zhuowen's back. However, Zhuowen remained indifferent. They knew that Zhuowen was finished. Bang! With a muffled sound, the 2 of them only saw a black shadow flash before their eyes. Soon after, they saw Fei, whose momentum was like a rainbow, fly backwards in an extremely sorry state, blood flowing out of his mouth. Fei forcefully flipped his body in midair and planted his feet on the ground, barely stabilizing his body. He looked at Zhuowen in horror. Behind Zhuowen, an incomparably huge black shadow blocked Zhuowen's path. It was this black shadow that had sent Fei flying. It's that exotic beast. When Fei saw the true face of the black shadow, his eyes were filled with shock. This black shadow was actually the dark creature that had been guarding outside the cave. Why did the dark creature come out and help the dragon rune? Fei was puzzled. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing were also surprised. They also recognized the identity of the Black Shadow. At the same time, they looked at Zhuowen with strange gazes. Although they didn't know why the dark creature would appear here, they guessed that it must be related to the dragon rune. However, the next scene made the two of them feel a little dizzy. Zhuowen said indifferently while breaking the blood shrink, "You there, go and get rid of that annoying fly. I'm annoyed just looking at it. How dare it disturb me when I'm doing something? Longwa must be crazy. The dark creature's strength is so terrifying. It must be a wild and untamed fellow." Now, Longwen actually called out to you there and even asked the dark creature to kill Fei. He's completely treating the dark creature as a hired thug. He's courting death. Chapter 2988. The Yama ghost diagram shows its might. The dark creature's eyes flickered, but it didn't refute Longwen. Instead, it stomped its feet and charged toward Fei as Zhuowen had instructed. Its terrifying aura was released unreservedly. He actually listened to Longwen's words. Yao Xiangjuan's cherry lips parted slightly as she muttered to herself, revealing her shock. Jiang Qixing's expression wasn't any better than Yao Xiangjuan's. Fei's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. What the hell was going on? Why did the dark creature listen to Longwen? However, what happened next didn't allow Fei to hesitate. This was because the dark creature had already arrived in front of him. Its huge, sharp claws tore through space and landed before him. It was as if the claws were going to crush him into pieces. Fei took a deep breath and suddenly struck out dozens of palms with both hands. Each of his palms blasted out a terrifying three-colored energy. This was the terrifying power that Fei had unleashed with the help of the three-colored talisman. It was many times stronger than his own strength. Bang! Fei's palm collided with the dark creature's, and the powerful force actually blasted the dark creature's sharp claws away. However, Fei didn't have it easy. He grunted and couldn't help but retreat. He spat out a mouthful of blood and looked extremely miserable. The dark creature wasn't injured, but its eyes were filled with surprise. It didn't expect the human in front of it to suddenly become so powerful that he could block its attack. It should be known that the dark creature's strength was actually around the mid-stage or late stage of the Lord of Creation realm. In terms of strength, it was enough to crush most of the geniuses who had entered the door of darkness this time. The reason it lost to Zhuowen wasn't that Zhuowen was too strong, but that Zhuowen cultivated the Pangu, sacred body, and fused 3 types of ancestral wizard venomous insects. It was just enough to suppress the dark creature. Therefore, in the sealed land, the dark creature was entangled by Zhuowen and couldn't take down Zhuowen for a long time. Roar! The dark creature reacted and roared furiously. The scales on its body stood up, and its aura instantly increased by several times. The dark creature's figure flashed like a ghost in the night, turning into an afterimage and sweeping toward Fei. Bang! 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 The dark creature's speed became extremely fast. Every time it collided with Fei spat out a mouthful of blood. Under the lightning-like attacks of the dark creature, Fei's face was extremely pale, and the 3 talismans surrounding him also became a little dim. If Fei's were the 3 talismans, he would have been killed by the dark creature in one move of the dark creature. Damn it! Red talisman, red talisman. Fei roared and suddenly grabbed the red talisman among the 3 talismans and threw it out. Instantly, the red talisman turned into a monstrous flame that swept out and engulfed the dark creature. Inai. On. He yellow. Is studio the moment the yellow talisman landed on the dark creature's body. It exploded with a yellow light. Immediately, the dark creature froze and became motionless. Fei flew toward Zhuowen the moment the dark creature froze. He did not hide the killing intent in his eyes. He must kill this despicable guy this time. Zhuowen was still breaking the blood contract, as if he did not see Ihan Fei flying toward him. Long One, go to hell. Let's see who can protect you this time. Ihan Fei's maniacal laughter was getting closer and closer. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan became even more restless. Ihan Fei grabbed the last blue talisman and threw it at Zhuowen. Wherever the blue talisman passed, a world of ice and snow formed a terrifying ice barrier in the surrounding space. The cold air seemed to be able to freeze everything in the world. However, the moment the ice barrier reached Zhuowen, a terrifying black gas suddenly surged out of Zhuowen's body. This black qi carried a strong aura of death. The black qi instantly enveloped Zhuowen, Yao Xiangjuan, and Jiang Qixing, who were still bleeding. Bang! 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 When the ice barrier completely appeared in the area where Zhuowen and the others were, the black gas rushed up, and the ice barrier actually collapsed and shattered. The moment the ice barrier shattered, the strange black gas shot out with a whoosh and turned into a ferocious ghost face that flew towards Ihan. Ihan Fei's pupils shrank. He kept retreating. At the same time, energy surged out of his body and slammed into the ghost face. However, he soon realized that his attack did not cause any substantial damage to the ghost face at all. The ghost face completely ignored his attack and arrived in front of him. Then, it opened its pitch-black mouth and tried to swallow him whole. Ihan Fei wanted to dodge, but he was shocked to find that he was surrounded by a strange black gas. Furthermore, the black gas seemed to have some kind of strange power that made him feel like he was stuck in a swamp and couldn't escape. No. Facing the approaching ghost face and its gaping mouth, Ihan Fei felt the fear of death. He screamed, but soon his screams came to an abrupt end because the ghost face had completely swallowed Ihan Fei. The moment Ihan Fei was swallowed, the black gas kept shrinking until it was all drawn into an ordinary-looking black scroll. Zhuowen and the other two's figures retreated from the black gas and appeared in their line of sight. The black scroll transformed into a black shadow and entered Zhuowen's body, disappearing without a trace. Where's Ihan Fei? At this moment, the blood contraction had been broken by Zhuowen. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing had also regained their freedom. They looked around, but did not see Ihan Fei's figure. They were surprised. He knew he was no match for us, so he ran away. Zhuowen smiled faintly, but he did not explain what had just happened. The black scroll that appeared just now was the Yama's demon portrait. Zhuowen had obtained it from the top secret place of the 10 Extremities Corpse sect. It was a divine artifact that was extremely powerful. This was Zhuowen's first time using the Yama's ghost portrait. The power displayed by the Yama's ghost portrait shocked Zhuowen. Ihan Fei was swallowed by the ghost face formed by the Yama's ghost portrait. Such an attack was very strange. The Yama's demon portrait was Zhuowen's biggest secret. It was even more precious than the Ho-E Divine Bow and Ho-E Divine Arrow. He naturally would not reveal such a thing unless there was something wrong with his head. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing didn't think too much about it. They knew that Ihan Fei had escaped, so they reminded Zhuowen to be careful. After all, Ihan Fei was a vengeful person who would take revenge for the smallest grievance. He would definitely not let Zhuowen off the hook after suffering losses at his hands. The dark creature not far away had already broken free from its frozen state. It came to Zhuowen's side and looked at the young man with fear. Chapter 2989. Gear Zone Brother Dragon. Why is this dark creature following you? And it seems to be very obedient to you? Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing came to Zhuowen's side and looked at the dark creature standing not far away from Zhuowen cautiously. They could still clearly remember how terrifying the dark creatures were when they left the strange world's exit. Logically speaking, such a powerful creature should be proud and arrogant and would never submit to others. But Zhuowen did it. I came to an agreement with it. I will break its seal, and it will help me find something. It's that simple, Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Seeing that Zhuowen didn't intend to say more, the two wisely didn't ask. By the way, Brother Dragon, when we appeared at the exit earlier, we saw Zhongli, Hao Yin, and the others rushing in that direction. I think they should have found the place where Gong Gong fell. Yao Xiangjuan pointed ahead and said in a deep voice. Zhuowen didn't answer, but looked at the dark creature beside him. The latter said in a deep voice, "That is indeed the place where the goo worm is sealed, and my master's real body is also placed there." Zhuowen looked pensive. The dark creature had told him that the strange world they were in was Gong Gong's inner world. He thought that once they left the exit, the place where Gong Gong's body was placed should be outside. But now it seemed that Gong Gong was quite thoughtful. He divided the body and inner world into two areas so that people who came in would have an illusion. However, you can rest assured that the place where my master's physical body is stored is even more dangerous than his inner world. Those fellows who came in and wanted to seize my master's physical body are simply wishful thinking. The dark creature sneered. Then what if I want Gong Gong's body? Zhuowen asked. The dark creature's words were immediately choked. He glanced at Zhuowen and said indifferently, "That will depend on your own ability. My master's body is preserved by my master. I don't know the real way to enter the storage place. I'm only responsible for helping you find the goo worm." Zhuowen nodded. He was just asking casually. He could see that the dark creature's loyalty to Gong Gong wasn't high. If Gong Gong left everything after his death to this guy, he would probably be miserable. According to you, the place where Gong Gong's body is stored is completely different from the place where the goo worm is sealed? Zhuowen asked with narrowed eyes. Yes, the dark creature confirmed. Then I'll go to the place where the goo worm is sealed. Zhuowen nodded. Then he looked at Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. Brother Jiang, junior sister Yao, you go to where Zhongli and Hao Yin went. Hao Yin and Hao Yin went. If anything happens, remember to send me a message. After Yi Hanfei's death, Zhuowen wasn't worried about Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan's safety. Moreover, Yi Qixing and Jiang Qixing had a good relationship. When they arrived at Gong Gong's storage place, Yi Qixing would definitely take care of them. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan also guessed that Zhuowen might be going to do something very important. Moreover, it wasn't suitable for them to know about it, so the two didn't say much. They just told Zhuowen to be careful, then cupped their fists and left the place. After watching Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing leave, Zhuowen called out to the dark creature. The latter nodded and brought Zhuowen in another direction. Far away in the gray area, the void here was filled with strange gears. These gears emitted all kinds of colors. Moreover, these gears didn't exist independently, but were connected to each other. They were rotating continuously. As long as one of the gears rotated, it would cause the other gears to rotate as well. The sound of gears rotating could be heard in the void, constantly echoing in everyone's ears. In this gray area, there was a very vast open space. This open space was very close to the countless gears in the void, as if it was about to connect. If one looked at it from a distance, one could see that the gears in the void and the open space below seemed to be connected. They were originally one. A group of people gathered in the open space. This group consisted of both humans and aliens. The humans were naturally led by Zhongli, Hao Yin, and Yi Qixing, while the aliens were led by the Phoenix people's Saintus and Moses. However, the two groups of people looked at the open space above with solemn gazes. The void was filled with countless gears. In the deepest part above the gears, everyone saw a faintly discernible figure. This figure was very large, as if it stretched across the sky and covered the sun. However, this figure was lying horizontally, motionless. It was either dead or in a deep sleep. Everyone present felt their hearts tremble the moment they saw the huge figure. Their eyes were filled with excitement and joy. This was because they all knew that the figure lying horizontally was their goal in entering the door of darkness this time. Ancestral Shaman Gong Gong. That should be the body of ancestral Shaman Gong Gong. However, the strange gears arranged in the void make me very wary. They're not simple. Yi Qixing frowned slightly, his eyes flickering. Zhongli, who was standing beside Yi Qixing, didn't look very good. Her divine instincts were much sharper than Yi Qixing's. Even she didn't have much confidence in being able to pass through this area of gears and get close to Gong body. This should be something the ancestral shaman set up before he died. His goal should be to protect his body after he died. The Phoenix People's Saintess looked at Zhong Lihaoyin and spoke. Zhong Lihaoyin nodded in agreement. Just as she was about to speak, a sonic boom suddenly swept out from the group behind her. Zhong Lihaoyin's beautiful eyes flashed with surprise. She immediately discovered a human cultivator with a greedy look in his eyes. He turned into a streak of light and rushed into the void, muttering that the blood essence of Gong's body was his. "Be careful," Zhong Lihaoyin shouted. Unfortunately, the human cultivator was already filled with greedy thoughts. He didn't pay attention to Zhong Lihaoyin's shout at all. His eyes were only fixed on Gong's body in the depths of the void. Damn it, why is this guy so impulsive? Yi Qixing cursed. He knew that it was too late to stop him. After all, the human cultivator was too fast and caught him off guard. He didn't expect this at all. By the time he reacted, the human cultivator had already arrived in front of the gear area. Then, everyone saw with their own eyes that the human cultivator suddenly burrowed into the gear area. Everyone thought that the human cultivator would be ground to death by the terrifying power of the gears in the gear area. However, unexpectedly, the human cultivator didn't die in the gear area as everyone expected. Instead, he easily passed through the gear area and entered the void, his figure quickly disappearing from everyone's sight. Chapter 2990. Fanning the flames. He went in just like that? No way. We've been waiting here for so long, thinking that this gear zone is terrifying and definitely not a good place. After half a day of discussion, this gear zone is just a decoration. It seems that we've all been deceived. This gear zone isn't that big of a deal. Discussions rose one after another. Whether it was the human race or the other race, they were all eager to make a move, their eyes blazing as they looked at the gear zone in the void. After waiting for a few minutes, they realized that the human race cultivator who had entered the gear zone still hadn't let out a scream. Everyone couldn't help it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Whether it was the human race or the other race, figures flew out one after another. Many people impatiently rushed into the gear zone in the void. The sound of the air being torn apart constantly rang out. Zhong Lihaoyin and Yi Qixing wanted to stop them, but it was useless. Everyone seemed to have gone crazy. In their eyes, there was only the essence blood of Gong's body. As long as they could obtain the essence blood of the ancestral witch, with the help of its magical effects, they might be able to soar into the sky and advance to a higher realm. Even if they didn't use it, they could bring it back to the sect. The essence blood could be exchanged for many good things, enough for them to advance. The situation between the human race and the other race was basically the same. Most of the other race rushed out like crazy and rushed into the gear zone. Soon, there were only a few cultivators left in the open space. Among them were Zhong Lihaoyin, Yi Qixing, the Phoenix People's Holy Maiden, and Moses. In addition to these four, there were a few people whose auras weren't very strong, so Zhong Lihaoyin and the others didn't pay too much attention to them. Basically, everyone has gone in. What should we do next? Yi Qixing was a little uncertain. Zhong Lihaoyin didn't say anything. Her bright eyes fell on the Phoenix People's Holy Maiden not far away. Clearly, she wanted to see what the Phoenix People's Holy Maiden would decide. The Phoenix People's Holy Maiden only pondered for a moment, then spoke with Moses for a while. The two of them then used their movement techniques and entered the gear zone. Let's go in too. Zhong Lihaoyin sighed. She knew that there was no other good way. Although she knew that this gear zone was definitely not a good place, she was not worried about leaving without even going in. After all, the body of ancestor Magus Gong was right in front of him. It was not too much to take a risk for the blood essence of ancestor Magus. Yi Qixing also knew what Zhong Lihaoyin was thinking. He didn't say anything, his feet lightly stepping on the air. Like an arrow shooting out, He followed closely behind Zhong Li Haoyan. At this moment, there were still 3 people left in the open space. These 3 people's auras were not strong, and the most conspicuous one was a very fat man. This fatty's eyes weren't big, but they were exceptionally bright. With one look, one could tell that he was a very clever character. As for the other 2, they looked very ordinary. They should be the 2 weakest humans. They stood in place, hesitating. Clearly, they were not confident that they could enter the gear zone. I say, brothers, the others have already gone in. Why don't you 2 go in? The fatty put his arm around their shoulders and took the initiative to talk. One of the pointy-faced men turned around, looked at the fatty, and sighed. Our cultivation is really too low. Only the Lord of Mystery is here. This kind of cultivation is at the bottom of the group. Not to mention that this gear zone is definitely full of danger. Even if there were no danger, we can't compete with the others. If we go in, we'll lose our lives. I think it's safer for us to wait here. Another round-faced man agreed. So that's how it is. The fatty's eyes flashed, and he laughed. Do you know that long one? I remember that he's also the Lord of Mystery, but he was able to defeat the Yin and Yang divine sects, Chao, Kongsheng, and the Merfolk's Elder MDA. I don't think the Lord of Mystery is weak. It's you guys who are not confident. The pointy-faced man shook his head. That long one is a freak. Although he's the Lord of Mystery, he has the battle prowess of a creator. I admit that he's a freak, but among the people who entered the door of darkness this time, his strength can only be considered above average at best. He probably won't gain much in there. However, the fatty shook his head and said, let me tell you guys, when it comes to treasures, it's not that the stronger one is, the higher the chance one has. Instead, it's that the higher one's luck, the higher the chance one has. If you guys don't even dare to try, then you won't have any chance at all. If you try, then you'll have some chance. This is the trillion-mile escape talisman. Each of you will have one. If you encounter danger, this talisman can save your life. The fatty took out 2 gray talismans and handed them to the 2 cultivators without a change in expression. Trillion-mile escape talisman? Fellow cultivator, this is too precious. The 2 cultivators took the gray talismans and realized that they were really trillion-mile escape talismans. Their legs almost gave out. This escape talisman could instantly send a cultivator hundreds of millions of miles away at an extremely fast speed. With this kind of escape talisman, even third-step Dao validation cultivators wouldn't be able to catch you. However, this escape talisman was extremely precious. Generally, only genius disciples with real status in Dao Palace forces could have it. Moreover, it was extremely rare. Now, the fatty in front of them took out 2 of these escape talismans. It was really shocking for them. At the same time, they were secretly delighted. If they had these escape talismans, they were confident that they could enter the gear zone. At least, they wouldn't have to worry about their lives after entering. Hey, we're all brothers in the 4 Cs. You don't have to be so polite. I feel like old friends with you too at first sight. It's only right that I help you. The fatty waved his hand and said heroically. The 2 cultivators were excited. They looked at the fatty with more and more gratitude. The pointy-faced cultivator said excitedly, we still don't know your name, fellow cultivator. We're inner disciples of the Kuan-Ming sect. I'm Lu Yang, and he's my junior brother, Chen Chu. So it's brother Lu Yang and brother Chen Chu. My name is Ma Yujia. You 2 can call me Brother Ma. The fatty smiled. That's right. Brother Ma, do you want to go in with us? That way, the 3 of us can take care of each other. The pointy-faced cultivator invited. Ma Yujia waved his hand and said, no need. The reason why I haven't gone in yet is because I'm waiting for my friend. Now that my friend hasn't arrived yet, I plan to continue waiting. If you 2 can't wait, you can go in first. Otherwise, all the good things inside will be snatched away. Ma Yujia's words fanned the flames. Immediately, the 2 cultivators were enraged. They hurriedly cupped their hands at Ma Yujia and rushed into the gear zone. Chapter 2991. Trillion Mile Talisman. Ma Yuja didn't just give out these 2 billion-mile escape talismans. Before he came here, he had secretly sold them to the surrounding human and alien races, and he did it very secretly. Of course, the so-called trillion-mile talismans that my Yuja gave out weren't real. Instead, they were made with ordinary talismans to pass off as genuine. It could be said that my Yuja's talismans were very popular. In addition, when my Yuja gave out the talismans, he seemed very mysterious. Many cultivators who received the talismans thought that they had gotten a great deal. At the same time, some cultivators despised this fatty for having a problem with his head. Of course, my Yuja didn't have a problem with his head. He didn't give out these fake trillion-mile talismans for fun. Instead, he set up a very secret surveillance formation in each talisman. What the cultivators who received the talismans saw and heard would naturally be recorded by the surveillance formation. Then, it would be transmitted to my Yuja. My Yuja could use this information to continuously analyze and unearth the real treasures of the Gear Zone. It could be said that my Yuji's method was really amazing. He didn't need to take any risks and let the majority of the cultivators explore for free. Moreover, he knew all the scenes and locations that the cultivators explored. Then, he only needed to select a few dangerous places to have a high chance of finding the correct path through the Gear Zone. Of course, my Yuja felt it was a pity that he didn't succeed in selling the talismans to Yi Qidong, Zhongli Haoyin, the Phoenix People's Saintess, and the other top geniuses. It had to be said that these top geniuses were very cautious. In addition, they all had the corresponding talismans on them, so they didn't accept the fake talismans that my Yuja gave out. This made my Yuja feel very regretful. Speaking of which, I haven't seen Zhuowen. When he was at the exit, I saw him fighting against the dark creature. Could it be that he died there? My Yuja received the information from the talismans in the Gear Zone and thought of Zhuowen. He had long since confirmed that the cultivator disguised as the Scarred Youth was Zhuowen. However, he didn't expose him, or rather, he didn't dare. Zhuowen was not the only one who had offended Senki Yin. My Yuja himself had done the same. If he were to expose Zhuowen, my Yuja would definitely expose him as well. The result of this would definitely be a loss for both sides. Therefore, my Yuja wisely chose to remain silent. 2 more people are coming. My Yuja suddenly let out a soft cry of surprise. He discovered that 2 streams of light were rushing over from afar. He hurriedly stood up, took out the 2 fake escape talismans that he had prepared earlier, and went forward to meet them. 2 streams of light entered the open space. It was a man and a woman. The man was quite handsome, but the woman was extremely beautiful. She was simply devastatingly beautiful. The moment Miyuji saw the beautiful woman, his eyes narrowed slightly. He was no stranger to this woman. When he was in the 8 heavens, he had seen this woman. It seemed that this woman had a close relationship with Zhuowen. Fortunately, Miyuji had already changed his appearance. Although he still had a big belly, his temperament and appearance were completely different, so Yao Xiangjuan didn't recognize him. After Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan landed in the open space, they first looked around in confusion. Immediately, they noticed that in the void above the open space, countless gears were rotating and emitting various brilliances. At the same time, in the depths of the gears, a huge figure lying horizontally attracted their attention. There really is the body of ancestral shaman Gonggong here. Yao Xiangjuan looked at the looming figure in the depths of the void and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Jiang Qixing's eyes were extremely solemn. He said in a deep voice, "Junior sister Yao, do you still remember Brother Long's instructions? The place where Gonggong's body is stored is definitely full of dangers. We have to be careful." Yao Xiangjuan came back to her senses and noticed the countless gears in the sky, as well as the strange creaking sounds they made as they rotated. She took a deep breath and calmed down. It seems that the teams of the human race and the alien race should have entered the gear zone to get close to Gonggong's body. Jiang Qixing calmly analyzed. Fellow Taoist analysis is very good. You're right. The human race and the alien race have entered. However, I have to remind you that the gear zone is full of dangers. You 2 fellow Taoists have to be careful. Don't fail miserably. A mellow voice sounded, and Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing finally looked at Ma Yujie. They had already seen the fat man before they came, but they didn't pay much attention to him. The fat man's aura wasn't strong. It was probably because his cultivation base was too low that he didn't dare to enter the gear zone. The two of them were actually somewhat disdainful of such a coward, so they didn't talk to the fat man as soon as they entered. Ma Yujie naturally saw the disdain in Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan's eyes, but he didn't care. He handed over 2 gray talismans he had already prepared and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoists, it's really too dangerous to enter the gear zone. These are 2 billion-kilometer talismans. Take them well. They can save your lives at a critical moment." Billion-kilometer talismans? You're actually giving such precious talismans to us? Yao Xiangjuan asked in surprise. Jiang Qixing frowned and coldly said, "Fellow Taoist, I don't believe you would be so kind as to give us such precious talismans." As Jiang Qixing said this, he used his divine sense to examine the talismans in Ma Yujie's hand, but he didn't find anything strange. The 2 billion-kilometer talismans were actually real. This made Jiang Qixing even more puzzled. He had never met the fat man before, so why would he give him such precious talismans? Moreover, why didn't the fat man enter the gear zone with such things? Why was he still wandering around outside? You might be wondering why I didn't enter with these talismans, right? In fact, I'm waiting for my friend here. We agreed to meet here and then enter together to search for Gongong's body. Ma Yujie shook his head and said with some grievance, "The reason I gave you these talismans is because I know you're my friend's friend. Since we're all friends, I naturally wouldn't watch you enter the gear zone without any protection." Friend's friend? Are you Brother Long's friend? Jiang Qixing was startled and immediately asked in surprise. But soon, Jiang Qixing asked in confusion, "I just met Brother Long not long ago." "How did you know?" "Of course I don't know you, but I know the girl beside you. When she and Long were outside the door of darkness, they were very intimate. Longwen told me all this and also told me to help you when you came." Chapter 2992. In a Valley. What do you mean by whispering sweet nothings to each other? Can you watch what you say? Yao Xiangjuan's pretty face changed slightly. The fatty in front of her was simply shooting his mouth off. In the door of darkness, she was clearly just chatting with Zhuowen. How could this fatty say that they were whispering sweet nothings to each other? This was too much of a distortion of the truth. "Oh, so you two aren't in that kind of relationship. Then I might have guessed wrong." Ma Yujie laughed mischievously, not looking like he was apologizing at all. His eyes narrowed mischievously. Yao Xiangjuan's pretty face turned pale when she saw the fatty reveal such a wretched smile, but she didn't flare up. In fact, she didn't know much about Longwen. They hadn't spent much time together, so she didn't know who Longwen's friends were. The fatty in front of her could accurately say Longwen's name, and even took out the billion-mile escape talisman to give them. Yao Xiangjuan actually believed that the fatty was Longwen's friend. After all, how could an outsider give them such a precious talisman for no reason, and even mention their names? Obviously, even if the fatty wasn't Longwen's friend, he should know Longwen. Of course, if Yao Xiangjuan knew that the billion-mile escape talisman Ma Yujie gave them was a fake, who knew if she would be so angry that she would directly strike the fatty to death? All right, I was wrong about what I said just now. Longwen didn't say such things. This time, the gear zone is very dangerous, so you two should be careful. I'll give you these billion-mile escape talismans so that you can have some life-saving means. Ma Yujie's face suddenly became serious. He waved his hand and forcibly stuffed the 2 talismans into Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing's hands. "Thank you, fellow Taoist. Since fellow Taoist is Brother Long's friend, you're naturally our friend too. We still don't know fellow Taoist's name?" Jiang Qixing put away the talismans Ma Yujie gave him, and his expression eased a lot. He cupped his hands and said to Ma Yujie. Yao Xiangjuan took the talismans Jiang Qixing handed over. Her originally somewhat ugly expression also calmed down a lot. However, Yao Xiangjuan didn't talk to Ma Yujia. Although the fatty was Long Wen's friend, his words were a little frivolous, which made her unhappy. At the same time, Yao Xiangjuan was also a little surprised in her heart. Long Wen was such a calm person. How could he have such a friend? Ma Yujia smiled and said, "I'm called Ma Yujia. You guys can just call me Brother Ma. I still have to wait here for Long Wen. Are you going to wait with me, or do you want to go in?" Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing shook their heads. Jiang Qixing said, "Ju and your sister Yao and I plan to go in and have a look. There must be more than just the ancestral sorcerer's body. There must be other things. Although the two of us aren't very strong, and it will be difficult for us to fight for the body of the ancestral shaman, it shouldn't be difficult for us to find the other treasures inside. Moreover, with Brother Ma's 100 million miles talisman, we can be considered to have one more life-saving trump card." Ma Yujia nodded and pretended to be gratified. "You're right to think that way. By the way, Brother Ma, Brother Long went to another place. Before he left, he told us to come here first, and he will come later. Why don't you come with me to the gear zone? The three of us can take care of each other." Jiang Qixing seemed to have thought of something and said to Ma Yujia. A strand of bright light flashed in the depths of Ma Yujia's eyes as he said in a low voice, "Long Wen did indeed tell me that he wanted to go to a place to look for something. I originally wanted to help him. Unfortunately, he said that place was very dangerous and told me not to go. Moreover, he refused to tell me where it was no matter what. Long Wen has always been like this. Every time he encounters something, he has to deal with it alone. Since I'm his friend, isn't it natural for me to help him?" Hearing this, Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan both looked ashamed. Although they boasted that they were Long Wen's friends, when Zhuowen told them to leave first, they didn't think that Zhuowen might be in danger, so they didn't say anything about leaving. On the contrary, the seemingly unreliable fatty in front of them was obviously more concerned about Long Wen than they were, which made them feel a little ashamed. Brother Long didn't tell us before that the place he went to was dangerous. How about this? Let's go to Brother Long's place and take a look. Maybe we can help," Jiang Qixing said somewhat shamefully. Ma Yujia shook his head and said, "No need. I understand Long Wen's character. If you go and return, he will definitely be angry. It's more appropriate for me to go. You two go into the gear zone first." Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan hesitated, but when they thought of Long Wen's instructions, they really didn't need to rush over to help Long Wen. After all, if Long Wen needed their help, he would have told them before they parted. However, the unreliable fatty in front of them was obviously not simple. He could easily give out 2 billion-mile talismans, so his wealth was definitely not low. His strength was definitely not weak either. If this fatty were to go and help Long Wen, it might be the most suitable choice. "Then I'll leave it to you, Brother Ma. We don't know where Brother Long went, but before we left, I looked back and saw that Brother Long went in that direction." After Jiang Qixing finished speaking, he pointed in a direction and said to Ma Yujia, "Thank you very much. You two must be careful when you enter the gear zone. I'll go and help Long Wen first. When he's done, we'll rush over." Ma Yujia cupped his hands at Jiang Qixing, then turned into a stream of light and rushed in the direction Jiang Qixing pointed. Soon, he disappeared from Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan's sight. Roar! A deafening roar came from the front. The dark creature that had been leading the way suddenly stopped. Zhuowen, who had been following behind the dark creature, also stopped. He immediately walked to the dark creature's side and found that there was a valley in front of him. The moment Zhuowen stood at the entrance of the valley, his body trembled, and his eyes revealed a look of surprise. This was because the scenery of the valley in front of him was too out of place with this gray area. The valley in front of him was lush and verdant, with green grass like a cushion. In the center of the valley, there was actually a rather large lake. The water of the lake was clear and green. From afar, it looked like a polished emerald, crystal clear and beautiful. Such a beautiful scenery was rare even in the outside world. He actually saw such a beautiful valley in this desolate and boundless gray area. This was really a bit too abrupt. Gong Gong's goo worm is in this valley. Chapter 2993. Gong Gong Goo Bug. The dark creature nodded and transmitted its voice to Jian Wushuang. You are a divine formation master. You should be able to tell why the scenery in this valley is so different from the surroundings. Zhuowen remained silent. The moment he saw the valley, he knew that someone must have set up some kind of powerful formation in the valley. That was why the valley had such a pleasant scenery. Moreover, he knew that the person who set up the formation must be Gong Gong. This was because the method used to set up the formation in the valley was basically the same as the formation used to seal the dark creatures. They were both created by the same person. So the Gong Gong goo bug should be at the bottom of the lake, right? Zhuowen said calmly. He slowly stepped out and made a gesture with his right hand, summoning beast bone formation discs one after another. In just a few breaths, Zhuowen broke the restriction at the entrance of the valley, and Zhuowen easily entered the valley. Gong Gong's formation skills were not high, so Zhuowen broke it too easily. Zhuowen was sure that the Gong Gong goo bug was at the bottom of the lake because the 3 goo bugs in Pangu, sacred body, sensed it. You guessed right. My master's goo bug is sealed at the bottom of the seal. However, I have to remind you that my master's goo bug has been corroded by evil thoughts. It has lost its mind, and its power is even more terrifying than before. Before you break the seal, I think you'd better be mentally prepared. The dark creature looked at the green lake in front of him with fear in its eyes. It reminded Zhuowen. Zhuowen could tell from the dark creature's expression that the Gong Gong goo bug that had been corroded by evil thoughts was definitely more terrifying than the dark creature. Thinking of this, Zhuowen's eyes became serious. However, he did not plan to give up. His Pangu's sacred body had reached the bottleneck long ago. He had been stuck at the peak of the 5-star level for some time. If he could absorb the Gong Gong goo bug this time, he would definitely advance to the 6-star Pangu sacred body. If he could advance to the 6-star Pangu sacred body, his strength would increase by a lot. By then, although he might not be a match for Senki Yin, who was at the early stage of the reaching heaven level, it was still impossible for Senki Yin to kill him in one move. He would be able to protect himself. Thinking of this, Zhuowen came to the edge of the lake and immediately jumped into the bottom of the lake. The dark creature stood on the shore and looked at Zhuowen, who disappeared at the bottom of the lake, with a complicated look. He was editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. If translation, translation. Should he translation? Translation. If translation. If translation, translation. If translation. If translation. If translation, he was translation. Translation. Or translation. If translation. Translation. Is translation. Translation. If translation. 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 If translation. Translation. If translation. Translation. The dark creature made up his mind. He was not in a hurry to leave because he had a feeling that this human was not simple. When he had fought with this human, he had felt the aura of the wizard ancestor on him. To be more precise, it was the aura of the wizard ancestor's goo bug. Although it was different from the aura of his master's goo bug, the essence of the wizard ancestor's goo bug was the same. In other words, this mysterious human had other wizard ancestors' goo bugs. The reason why this human was looking for goo bugs was probably because he had something that needed the wizard ancestor's goo bug. Perhaps this human really had a way to subdue the goo bug. While the dark creature was waiting on the shore, Zhuowen continued to go deeper into the lake. Although the lake water was clear and green, it was extremely cold. The moment Zhuowen entered the lake, his body could not help but tremble. The moment Zhuowen entered the lake, he was extremely cautious. He was afraid that a powerful creature would suddenly appear in the lake. However, as he continued to go deeper, he realized that he was safe and unobstructed. Nevertheless, the deeper Zhuowen went, the more he felt that something was wrong. This was because he realized that the lake seemed to be bottomless. He had been sinking for about half a day, but he still had not reached the bottom of the lake. After sinking for a few more hours, Zhuowen took a closer look and saw a green barrier not far from his left. The green barrier was in the shape of a hexahedron. It was floating in the lake and was as tall as a few people. As the green barrier's color was almost the same as the lake water, Zhuowen did not notice it first. He only noticed it when he got closer. Zhuowen landed at the edge of the green barrier and saw a thumb-sized bug floating in the barrier. It was motionless, as if it was frozen. This bug was dark blue. At the bottom of the lake, it emitted a faint blue light. Its appearance was sharp and its surface was covered with sharp spikes. It looked very ferocious. Zhuowen felt an extremely strong water element aura from this bug. He knew that this bug should be the goo that Gong Gong had sealed here. Zhuowen waved out beast bone array discs and formed a seal with both hands. At the same time, he used the profound, primordial, everlasting to break the green barrier. In less than 10 breaths of time, the green barrier was destroyed. The little bug that was originally motionless within the barrier trembled and opened its scarlet eyes. Roar! The little bug actually let out a beast-like roar. Immediately after, it shot out violently and charged towards Zhuowen with monstrous killing intent. Wherever this goo worm passed, the entire lake water boiled, forming one terrifying storm after another in the water, wreaking havoc and exploding continuously. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and began to retreat. He felt that the goo was much stronger and more violent than the other goo he had encountered before. It seemed that the dark creature was right. This goo was indeed eroded by Gong Gong's evil thoughts. Otherwise, it would not have lost its mind and attacked everything it saw. However, the moment Zhuowen kept retreating, he found that the surrounding lake water seemed to have turned into palms that grabbed him and imprisoned his body. Obviously, the goo did not intend to let Zhuowen go. "You're courting death." Zhuowen snorted coldly and stopped retreating. Instead, he suddenly unleashed the power of the Pangu sacred body. 3 goo venomous insects shot out of his body and circled around him like the most loyal guards. The moment Zhuowen released the power of the Pangu sacred body, the Gong Gong goo worms slowed down abruptly, and their scarlet eyes showed a trace of surprise and doubt. The moment Zhuowen completely released the 3 goo worms in his body, the Gong Gong goo worm screeched. Its voice was filled with terror. Then it turned around and began to flee. Chapter 2994. Subdued Zhuowen looked at the escaping Gong Gong goo worm and sneered. He followed closely behind. He would not let the Gong Gong goo worm escape. "Come here." Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and the 3 goo worms around him suddenly shot out and blocked the Gong Gong goo worm's path. Hiss! Hiss! The Gong Gong goo worm hissed anxiously and immediately attacked the 3 goo worms in front of it. Unfortunately, although the Gong Gong goo worm was strengthened by the evil thoughts and its strength surpassed other ancestral wizard goo worms of the same level, it was blocked by 3 ancestral wizard goo worms. Therefore, the Gong Gong goo worm could not break through the obstruction of the 3 goo worms in a short time. When Zhuowen arrived, the Gong Gong goo worm barely broke through the blockade of the 3 goo worms. Unfortunately, it was too late. Zhuowen had used the sky-splitting blade and heaven and earth dying together. The sky-splitting blade with destructive power swept out from Zhuowen's hand and swept towards the Gong Gong goo worm. The Gong Gong goo worm activated the power of the surrounding water and barely blocked the sky-splitting blade. However, it was also injured by the sky-splitting blade. When it wanted to escape again, Zhuowen had already rushed over and grabbed the Gong Gong goo worm with his right hand. The Gong Gong goo worm kept hissing and trying to resist Zhuowen. However, the Pangu's sacred body suppression on it was too terrifying. No matter how strong it was nothing in front of the Pangu's sacred body. Zhuowen easily slapped the Gong Gong goo worm away, and the huge force made the goo worm fall to the bottom of the lake. The Gong Gong goo worm was very agile. The moment it fell to the bottom of the lake, it immediately got up and fled towards the surface of the lake. Zhuowen's next attack missed. With a thought, The 3 goo worms not far away rushed out and chased after the Gong goo worm. Zhuowen followed closely behind. On the shore of the lake, the dark creatures kept retreating. Their eyes flickered with fear as they looked at the turbulent lake with countless water columns. It seems that the human has already unsealed the goo worm. The goo worm that has been corrupted by its master's evil thoughts will not recognize me. When it comes out, I'm afraid the first person it will attack will be me. The dark creature felt a little helpless. It retreated once again and left the lake. It naturally hoped that the human would be able to subdue the goo worm. After all, the goo worm was a hot potato to it. Should I just leave now? Although that human is not simple, he might not be a match for the goo worms. The dark creature hesitated. He was worried that Zhuowen wouldn't be a match for the goo bug. If that happened, he would have to face the goo bug alone. However, it was extremely indignant. If that human had truly subdued the goo worm and were to flee at the last minute, the latter would probably ignore it even if it wanted to ask him to bring it away from this place. Zhuowen's voice was cold. Just now, when he was subduing the goo worm of Gong, his divine sense accidentally scanned the entrance of the valley and discovered that there was a figure hiding behind the entrance. And for some reason, Zhuowen felt that this figure gave him a very familiar feeling. Because of this, the moment Zhuowen caught the goo worm of Gong, he did not immediately refine it. Instead, he imprisoned it and put it in his macro world. The dark creature was shocked and looked at the entrance of the valley with some surprise. It was very confident in its sensitivity. Just now, it actually did not discover that there was someone at the entrance of the valley. Or could it be that this human was bluffing? Thump, thump, thump. The sound of footsteps could be heard. Then, a figure appeared behind the entrance. This was a young fatty with a big belly. The fatty was all smiles as he looked at Zhuowen and very warmly said, "Brother Zhuo, what a coincidence to actually meet you here. As always, we are fated to meet." "It's you?" The moment he saw the fatty in front of him, Zhuowen immediately guessed that this person should be Ma Yujia. He immediately felt a headache. "How did you know I was here?" Zhuowen asked in an unfriendly tone. Ma Yujia was very thick-skinned. He chuckled and said, "Brother Zhuowen, you misunderstood. I really happened to pass by and saw that the fight here was so intense. So, I came in to take a look out of curiosity. Then, I saw an acquaintance. It's you." Zhuowen did not bother with Ma Yujia at all. He said indifferently, "If there's nothing else, Brother Ma should leave first. By the way, my name is Longwen now. Call me Brother Long. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.